Jonathan Davis is an economist and financial advisor, and he joins me now. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Nick.
You know, £2,000 seemed like an unimaginably large number. Is it really going to be double that a year?
It could, unfortunately, very well be that. It's interesting how the media focuses on Russia restricting gas into Europe. Can I please remind your listeners that the West put massive sanctions on doing business with Russia? So inevitably, it means that they've stopped largely one of the biggest exporters of energy, green energy, into Europe. So naturally, when you add on that the Western politicians for the last 10 or 15 years have told the oil and gas companies, don't find oil and gas and produce it and sell it. Instead, do the green things. Well, put it all together, and the chickens are now finally coming home to roost. There isn't enough energy for what is demanded. Economics 101, Nick, the price goes up.
Right, but you're suggesting, I think, that it's the West's fault. It's not. Russia is the one that's turning off the taps.
I repeat, in recent months, the West put sanctions on doing business with Russia. So, what's the chicken or the egg? Which came first? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but the West, hang on a minute, the West is not putting a sanction on Russia for their gas. The gas is the one thing that we would welcome with open arms from Russia. And you would think that Russia would want to sell it to us, it being one of the only things they've got to make money with.
Why? They can sell it to China. They can sell it into
they can't possibly sell. They can't possibly sell that much to China. There isn't the infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from. Russia's
how would they get it there?
You're asking me a question that I don't know the answer to, but I can tell you that Russia's exports of oil and gas are at record levels. But as I say, please don't forget that for 10 or 15 years, our governments told the oil and gas companies, BP, Shell, Exxon, you name it, don't find more oil and gas because what we need is more wind turbines and solar panels.
I don't think
stuff of nonsense.
It's not. Of course, it's not nonsense. Green energy is not nonsense. Wind power is the cheapest way of making electricity at the moment. What are you talking about?
That is arrant nonsense.
Of
you
course
need to go
not.
back to your
What's the cheapest way of manufacturing electricity at the moment? Not manufacturing, but producing.
Yeah.
What is it?
Overall. In terms of longevity, in terms of continuity of supply, in terms of efficiency, and in terms of environmental friendliness, nuclear power.
Right, okay. Well, we can't magic nuclear power out of the air. That's something that takes 20 years to build one of those things and put it online. So what are we going to do now?
We should tell the oil and gas companies that they can go and find as much oil and gas as they want. That's what we should do.
Well, we have something called climate change, which is going to be exacerbate. No.
Well, that's the media talking about something which simply isn't the case.
You don't believe in climate change.
There is no man-made climate change.
Where do you work? Are you an independent economist?
Goodness me. Yes, I am.
Right. And who buys your services? Would it be the oil and gas business?
Wealthy private individuals.
Right. Okay, good to talk to you, Jonathan. Basingstoke. Hello, Daniel.
Hello. I'd love one of these delightful lefty woke wind farm loving lunatics to come up with how we actually get to a solution. They all sit there and go, I'm really scared of fracking. My house might collapse into a hole. I think we should all run around with wind turbines attached to our heads. And I think we should turn our car into solar panels. None of them have a solution.
A solution
None
to
of them actually have
a solution to what?
to moving away from using gas or fossil fuels or any form of environmentally damaging forms of generating energy.
Yeah, we do. Everything that you just mentioned, solar and wind and tidal and nuclear.
So, yeah, well, they don't like nuclear either because that's a little bit scary for them as well. The feathers might go in the wrong direction. Do you know how many offshore wind turbines we have in the UK? 2,300. Right. Do you know how many onshore we have? 8,600. They don't generate enough electricity to justify getting the electricity requirement the country needs. It is not a solution.
Okay, I don't know, Daniel. You seem to be doing a performance here. I get the message. A listener with the material. Vauxhall, Raymond.
Yeah, hi there. I was going to say that, you know, there is a lot of issues these days about whether or not somebody of great wealth should be in power. I'm of the opinion, and you know, it's not a cast in stone opinion, but I'm leaning towards the fact that if you have a choice of somebody running, you know, the country and all the funds and all of our money, would you hand the job to a successful banker, let's say, or a failed banker? Now, he's clearly a successful banker. He made a lot of money doing what he did.
Is that the choice that we have? A successful banker or a failed banker?
Well, I'm talking for the principle of managing money now, I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? I know there's more to it. He's
been quite poor at managing money. I mean, the billions that he wasted on giving PPE contracts to companies and friends of the government who couldn't deliver, who either gave us nothing at all for the money or gave us PPE that couldn't be used. And we were spending something of the order of £1 million, is it a day or a week? Probably a week, in order to store PPE that we couldn't use, that we're now setting fire to.
Well, look, I mean, he was, correct me if I'm wrong, he was the Chancellor. He wasn't the Health Secretary. The Health Secretary is the one to make those decisions, you know, who gets the contracts.
Well, yeah, but it's the money, isn't it? And he's accused of not hedging against the inflation on the debt that it was accrued to that, which seems to be a basic thing that somebody in finance would have organised. His record isn't that great, other than making money for himself.
Well, you see, I mean, it depends, which way you look at it. From my point of view, what I see he did in the pandemic, he did what no other Chancellor has done for, 30 years. He just threw money at the problem, which nobody expected a Conservative Chancellor to do.
Well, that's completely incorrect. That we had not had such a problem in our lifetimes. So you can't compare what he did with what previous chancellors have done, because previous chancellors didn't see this problem. And he did, of course, have no choice in the matter. Every major economy did the exact same thing. Otherwise, they would have been looking at the ruination of their, the entire economy. The whole house of cards would have fallen down. So I don't think you can give him much credit for that. But to me, it does come down to, he's just a gambler. I mean, we dress it up with, fancy titles, and we revere those in the finance industry, but they're just gamblers. Just as much as somebody who is betting on the horses. He just bet on a financial scenario, which was disastrous for the rest of the world, but did great for him. They're just gamblers. I think we've got to think about bankers in a different way. Just because they're handling large amounts of money doesn't mean to say they're geniuses. He just got lucky, essentially. Norwich, Leslie.
Hello, let me just turn my TV off.
Turn your TV off, Leslie.
I will do. 2 seconds. Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
He's gone up in my estimation.
From where to where?
He went up in my estimation yesterday.
No, but from where in your estimation to now? To where?
He prevented our country from going into a further lockdown earlier this year. So but for that...
Right, but if you're standing next to the wall and you're measuring your height, he, in your estimation, went from where on your body?
It was pretty much sort of zero. I thought they were all a comedy act until I heard that Rishi had prevented our country from going into a further lockdown.
Right, so now he's up around your elbows, I'm saying? Something like that?
He's gone up very high in my estimation.
Even more than that, up to shoulder height. Wow. Yeah. Which, if he stood on a box, is pretty much where he'd reach.
Yeah, I guess so. It's my birthday today, by the way.
Wow. No one cares. I wish you a happy birthday and a happy new year. How old are you, Leslie? You don't have to tell me.
21 again.
You're 21 again. Well, you look fantastic, if you don't mind me saying that. Do you mind me saying that?
I don't mind.
No, of course not.
You just
look a little tired, that's all. Maybe you should try an early night. A little tired for 21, that's all I'm saying.
Anyway, bottom line is Rishi has gone up in my estimation.
Up in your estimation. Shoulder height, yes.
No, beyond shoulder height, because he prevented our country going in from lockdown because, that is the thing which has trashed our economy.
Well, it's
big time.
Among the things that have trashed our economy.
Okay, among the things, but it is a contributor.
Right. So he's up around lip height now.
Disgusting. No, higher than lip height.
Higher than that. Wow.
High.
He's kissing you on the forehead. You could wear him as a hat. He's so high.
Beyond the forehead.
Okay.
Beyond the forehead.
Beyond the forehead, right.
Sky high.
Right. Floating above you like a cloud. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Leslie. Let's go with Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Graham.
Hey, you made a great point about one of the advantages of the heat you guys are having to deal with, and that's you don't have to go to Spain. You can stay home and get cooked.
Well, now, I guess so, but only for 2 days. That's the problem.
Yeah. I remember coming to see my grandmother years ago, and she's on the beach at Brighton or Hove or somewhere, Margate. She's got a fur coat on. She's in July. She's wearing a fur coat at the beach. So
that sounds like Margate.
Maybe those days are over. But you've got an ocean breeze, so you know the wind's blowing all different ways because you're an island. I mean, how hot can it be, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't live in the middle of town, and I spent today expecting it to be warm. I mean, the flat that I live in is cold. It's cold and it's damp, freezing in the winter, and it never really gets warm in the summertime. And I looked at my phone to see how warm it was going to be outside, and it said 80 degrees. And I was sitting inside with a jumper on. It was so cold. And I went outside, and I thought, well, it's all right, but I wouldn't call it hot. And then I drove into London, and it was hot, right enough. So there's a big difference between living out in the sticks and living in the centre of town, no doubt. And so if it's going to be 106 in the middle of London, then that just does not seem like a kind of thing that you would want to experience. Chelsea, hello, Dominic.
Hi, Nick.
Dominic.
Nick, I think Starmer is absolutely right to denounce nationalization. That's a leftist agenda. He has no chance if he supports nationalization. You know, he has to
even if it's what the people want.
The people don't want. Look, Nick. The people don't want it.
I think they do.
They don't vote. The ones that want it don't vote. Look, Nick. If he mentions nationalization, the Tories are going to remind the electorates of the 70s and 80s, all the strikes, the union strikes, and that will ruin his chances.
But that had precious little to do with the railways, for instance, being in national control before they got sold off, and. We're looking at an enormous number of strikes now, so that will perhaps put the 70s in perspective. Dominic.
I know, Nick, but he has to fight from the center ground. That's a leftist agenda. He has to in fact, he has to be Tory light to have chances of winning. People think it's a bad thing. It's not.
But that suggests that the majority of people in this country are on the right in the political spectrum. But they aren't. We just think that because the Tory party keep winning again and again. But they keep winning, and they've been in power for about 2/3 of the time since the Second World War. They keep winning with a minority of the votes. Boris Johnson reportedly thinks he will return as Prime Minister next year, even though he only resigned less than 3 weeks ago.
What?
The PM announced he would step down on July the 7th after 57 ministers resigned from the government in just 48 hours. They said, right, that's it, we're leaving. That's following the Chris Pincher scandal. However, he has been privately saying, Bodge, that he's going to make a comeback to Downing Street as soon as next year, according to his former aide, Tim. He's coming back. We're going to need a bigger boat. He bowed out of his final Prime Minister's questions last Wednesday, telling MPs, hasta la vista, baby. An apparent reference to Arnold Schwarzenegger's catchphrase of the film Terminator, which is also famous for the line, I'll be back.
Correct.
Spoiler alert, that Terminator doesn't come back. He dies and is replaced with another one just like him. Enter the Lizbot.
Affirmative.
A little more than a fortnight ago, Mr Johnson told the nation it's now clearly the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. Well, you know what? Actually, Bodge, it's not just the Parliamentary Conservative Party, it's the will of the people.
Bye-bye.
We say. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And leave some of the fixtures and fittings. We paid for that stuff. He says, the reason I have fought so hard for the last few days to continue to deliver our mandate in person was not because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. Who's he kidding? We see you. He's been this past week doing his duty by playing his favourite game, where he dresses up in other people's work clothes and plays pretend. After his final PMQs, the outgoing Bodge was given a standing ovation by Tory MPs, and there wasn't a spine among them. We hate you, we hate you, we hate you. Now get out. You're leaving? We love you. Johnson told the Commons that his last 3 years as PM had been the greatest privilege of my life, as he listed his achievements in office, such as... Well, you know, there was the time that he did... No idea. Not a single clue. Suggestions that Bodge could return as PM came up to 7,600 Tory party members demanded a vote on whether Boris Johnson remains leader. 7,600 Tory party members demanded a vote on whether Bodge remains a leader. They said... I mean, seriously, are these people divorced from reality? Get out of the golf club, you Tory party members. See what the rest of us think. The people behind the petition threatened to apply for an injunction on the Tory leadership election if the request was refused. Oh, please do that. I double dare you. I mean, this is the speciality of the Labour Party. Punching each other in the face because of a lack of purity. Please do that. The petition said... It said, back in 2019, Boris Johnson was elected by the membership to be our new leader. Now that choice has been changed without referral to the people that elected him. You cannot disenfranchise the membership from the whole process from the beginning, as this is open to abuse by the parliamentary party, who may have vested interest, reasons and grievances to settle against our leader. It said, morale amongst the membership is low and there is anger towards the parliamentary party. I demand Boris Johnson be added to the ballot as an option for the members to vote upon in the forthcoming election. You've got to be kidding me. The choice, we voted for Boris Johnson. That choice has been changed without referral to the people that elected him. Correct, Amundo. We elected him. By which I don't mean me, but just enough. 46% of those that could be bothered to express a preference. Less than half, note, which gave them a massive majority. Less than half of the people in this country gave that party 100% of the power. Again. You cannot disenfranchise the membership from the whole process. This is open to abuse by the Parliamentary Party. Well, we've been abused by the Parliamentary Party over and over and over again. And unlike most of them, we don't like it. Morale among the membership is low.
Stop whining.
Oh, please. It's like someone's taken their dummy away. The two men leading the petition are Lord Cruddas, a self-made billionaire, of course he is, and a major donor to the Tory party. Of course he is. And David Campbell, what is his name? Campbell Bannerman, a former MEP, if you please. Well, isn't Cruddas the chap that Bodge elevated to the House of Lords despite official advice? And isn't Campbell Brown an old kipper?
We've got a few idiots in our party.
I mean, they're just the type to decide on the future of this country, aren't they? An old kipper and a lord. A billionaire. I mean, seriously, has there been a coup in this country? Because I didn't see it on the news, but it appears to have taken place. Still, it's not like it could get any worse. In other news, Michael Fabricant was the first MP to support the Bring Back Boris campaign. Oh, yeah? What does his hair say? Hampton. Hello, Derek.
Yeah, Nick, you're very close-minded about this one. Betting on horse racing is the most regular, easy way to win money. But you've got to study the form. If you don't study the form, it is blatant, stupid gambling like any other gambling. But horse racing, you've got a history of horses and their form according to their age.
I understand all this, but all of that information is available to anybody that shows up at a horse race. It doesn't sound like a good business practice to be in an industry where all you've got to do is see how a horse has raced in the past, and it will give you an indication as to what it's going to do in the future. I think you're as deluded as the last guy. The industry isn't losing money, and people aren't generally going out with fortunes just because they bought a newspaper that shows what the form of a horse is. It's like people choosing their lottery numbers based on what numbers have come up in the past. But I guess we're not going to agree on that, so let's leave with a smile and a handshake. Catford, hello, Steve.
Oh, hi, Nick. Yeah, I don't want to sound flippant about this, but I struck lucky. I've got next week off.
Right.
Had obviously no idea we'd have this, and I'm aware of climate change and there's certain vulnerable people that could, but for me, today I went to M&S and I bought lots of goodies and I stuck them in the fridge, and tomorrow the parasol goes up in the garden, and I'm not gonna sit in the sun. Don't do that, kids. No. Don't do that. And I've had this long thing. I mean, I've spoken to you a while ago about I'm going to play every Steely Dan record that they've ever made. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow.
That stuff does sound better in the sunshine, no doubt about that. Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
And M&S is usually uncomfortably cold, so I imagine it would give excellent respite over the next couple of days. Other supermarkets are available, I'm fairly sure about that. Barnet. Hello, David.
Hello, yes, hi.
David.
Yes, well, I have to agree with you, but I'm pretty sure her fixed skull would end up denting the ground personally, and that'd be another pointless pothole that the council has to deal with.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, I am a Conservative Party member.
Really?
And yes, really, I know, I'm one of those. But no, seriously, I think the system itself is broken. The fact that we've given our own MPs the power to whittle it down to the final two. unfortunately, politicians simply can't be trusted with those sort of decisions, and which is why the public should be able to select the next Prime Minister, personally.
Yeah.
But,
well, I felt that a joke was coming here, but I don't know.
No.
You've run out of runway.
No, there's no joke coming here.
Right, okay.
I genuinely despise the choices that we have. You know, I've been a loyal member and everything, but I won't be campaigning for either of the two.
Well, who would you prefer?
I was originally going to go for Kemi Badenoch. I thought she would be an interesting new force in the party.
Interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, as in really scary. Yeah.
Well, no, I think, you know, we need to give... I would originally want to put not Liz Truss, Penny Mordaunt and then Kemi Badenoch in the final two. And whichever way the party wants to go down, that's their choice. And, you know...
Why did you come to that conclusion, though? Or are you just, like, rolling the dice and let's see what will happen if we put these people in charge?
Well, no, I feel like as a party, we're going to go down one or two ways. We're going to go down the Liberal route, or we're going to go down the populist route.
Well, we know which way they've gone.
I'm a nutcase.
Following Nige.
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, well, it's not a possibility. It's actually happening right now.
Nigel Farage is not fit and proper to be in government.
He doesn't have to be in government. He's dictating where government goes. There's been a reverse takeover of the Conservative Party by the UKIP tendency.
Yes, and I think that's why it should be open to the wider party, because I don't think the party members themselves all necessarily are like the UKIP type. From what I've personally experienced,
95% white British, 56% live in London and the South East, 39% over 65, 63% male, 76% Leave voters. That sounds like kippers to me.
Well, that could be the truth, but I would say that before we've elected people like David Cameron, who wasn't by any means a, you know, sort of UKIP type. No, we are the party of, you know, Thatcher, Theresa May. So definitely not necessarily UKIP or UKIPers per se.
Right. So who are you going to vote for? No, neither of them.
I'm going to spoil my ballot.
Right. How are you going to do that? Don't tell me.
I can think of anything that I'd like to say right now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Someone better, maybe?
Oh, you're going to put in someone better? Does anybody cross your mind at all?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Anyone at all?
Oh, God. Probably just... Let's write something like Anne Widdecombe. Bring Anne Widdecombe back.
Wow. Anne Widdecombe. You sound like a sensible person, David, until you actually get a hold of what it is you're saying. You want Anne Widdecombe back. That one. It's a no from me.
No.
No. Stanwell. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good stuff. First of all, the guy you had on, your guest, who denied climate change, I think you should probably expose his name and put his name out there somewhere. He's obviously an absolute lunatic.
Well, let's not get carried away. I did introduce him by name. I can't recall what it is off the top of my head.
No, well,
anyway.
It's not a name I want to remember. The climate change is, you know, we've done more damage in 200 years since the Industrial Revolution.
All right, well, let's not go down that path.
Okay. To Keir Starmer, I believe that Keir Starmer's, you know, he's getting his numbers wrong. He's doing, you know, it's a numbers game. He should be standing with the workers. But what he's worried about is if he stands with the workers, he might have to admit, you know, Brexit was a bad thing, and that would put off the ex-Labour voters that voted for Brexit.
But are the two connected? He can stand with the workers without bringing Brexit into it, can't he?
Well, the thing is, you've got to look at how much money's coming into the country. If we had the money that we're missing from not being in the EU, then it probably would be easier to adjust to inflation. You know, the burgers have gone up here in McDonald's, but they haven't gone up in Europe. And for some reason, I can't understand why. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, I can understand why you wouldn't want to bring that up because it still fires people's emotions for various reasons. They were promised all of this great stuff, and it's almost like coming down on Christmas Day and there's nothing under the tree. And so they're waiting under the tree for Santa to come, and they're looking forlornly at the fireplace, and they're convinced he's going to arrive any moment now, but he never does.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Nick, if he was brave enough to say, look, you voted, you had the right to vote. I appreciate that everybody has the right to vote. You were lied to on different levels all over the board, and it's not your fault. We can see, recently with Dover and whatever else, that we were taking back control, but we don't have control, even though we left. And just admit it, just come out and be brave enough. But and I think there are a lot of Tory voters that voted for Conservative for Brexit that would appreciate that.
Well, maybe, but he needs the working class, and the working class are more in love with Brexit than the middle class, who didn't like the idea at all beforehand and really don't like it now. The working class, which is his traditional audience, they are still in love with the idea of Brexit. They just feel that we haven't had enough of it.
No, they're too ashamed to admit that it was wrong. That's the only thing. Because they made such a big deal about it.
Well, then it's not going to benefit the Labour Party if he tries to tell them how stupid they are. That's not going to bring them on board.
Well, no, but the thing is, it would show that he stands for something. Do you understand?
Yeah, but again, see, that I come back to what I started this about 5 minutes ago. He could show he stands for something. He could be fair and decent and lose. And that seems to be what the left actually like doing the most. Gaining the the moral high ground and losing. They seem addicted to it. Banbury. Hello, Nigel.
Hello.
Nigel.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello. I just wanted to point out that the man you just spoke to earlier about it was saying about credit cards. You're not allowed to use credit cards anymore for gambling. It cannot be used. It's illegal to use a credit card.
It's illegal to use a credit card for gambling. Well, how do you then use it on your phone?
Because you have to use a debit card for money straight from your bank. It's not a credit card. You can't run up a bill on a credit card with a betting company.
Okay.
So that he's probably been out of the loop a bit longer than realises that, because that came in about 2 years ago.
Right.
And
go on.
Personally, I'm against the government doing anything about it. What should happen is the people who are problem gamblers, which is a very small percentage.
It's a lot of people.
Stuff I've read about it, over 90% of people gamble quite, without getting into trouble of any kind. So what I should do is deal with the people who get in trouble, not the whole industry.
But it's a lot of people, though. I mean, it might be a relatively small percentage, but it's a small percentage of a very large number.
Yeah, and I don't mind if they try and do something about those people. But the other problem is, what you've got is that my interest, for instance, since I'm 70 years of age now, and I've been doing it since I was about 20, is horse racing. That's the only thing I gamble on.
Right.
But horse racing is a sport where you can use skill and win.
I'm not sure about that. It's luck.
I know that's a fact. I know that's a fact.
But it's luck.
There's a professor who did a whole study on all types of gambling 50 years ago. I can't remember his name now. And he concluded that the only form of gambling that you can do and win money is horse racing.
Yeah, I very much doubt that. I doubt that that's the case. If it were, then everybody would win. I mean,
but people don't go into it hard enough. People do win. There are professional gamblers.
Yeah,
people
I think.
Do win.
Yeah, but most professional gamblers surely end up doing something that actually has an element of skill in it, like poker.
That's what I'm saying. With skill, you can make money at horse racing.
No, poker, I'm saying.
You got more chance with horse racing, I tell you now.
But then why do people lose? Well, why do most people lose at horse racing then?
You don't know that. I wouldn't say most people lose at horse racing. I can't remember the figures now, but an awful lot of the money that a bookmaker takes in is paid out again.
Well, yeah, but you see that on...
Like that man said, 6p in the pound.
Well, exactly.
So
that you see that on one-arm bandits. They say that we pay out 90-odd% of the money that you put in, and that sounds attractive. But what they do is they give you a little bit to hook you, and then you empty your pockets into the machine.
Yeah, and I don't want that. I personally, this is my personal view, and it may be a biased view, if they bring in affordability checks and things like that, then I don't agree with that used on horse racing, because horse racing people can make a profit.
Well, yes, but the house always wins.
No, they don't. That's not true of bookmakers.
Are you telling me that bookies at horse tracks don't make a profit? Are you saying that they pay out more than they bring in?
No, they make a book. Don't you understand how they do it? They make a book. So whatever wins, it doesn't matter which horse wins, they win. That's how bookmakers make a profit.
Right.
It's not on the losers. They make an over round of the race, and even if 6-4 favourite wins, they may win less, but they still win on that race, and that's how they make a profit.
But how can you beat the odds?
You can, with knowledge on what a good horse is and what a bad horse is.
But how come that knowledge is only available to someone like you? Why isn't that knowledge generally available
to anybody who wants to look it up and study, like I have for 40, 50 years?
To study the form, to see how a horse has raced in the past. Nigel, you're kidding yourself. It's absolutely deluded talk. It's total luck. Anything could happen. I mean, a horse that wins every race might quite possibly win the next one, but it's total chance. It's an animal that's running on a track. I think you're kidding yourself, Nigel. Let's have a call in Isleworth. Hello, Ravi.
Yes, Nick, how are you, sir?
I am great, mate.
Well, I looked at Rishi Sunak's trousers.
Yes.
He doesn't know his inside leg measurement, but more importantly, I read somewhere in this High Life Asian magazine that all his suits are tailor-made.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think
they're tailor-made to fit someone else.
If you look closely at his bottom of the trouser, it goes tighter towards the ankle.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that could make him not Prime Minister with the wrong trouser.
Well, I don't think that would exclude him. Maybe they get tight at the ankle in case his pockets wear out with all the cash, and he doesn't want them. He doesn't want all that money spilling out over the pavement.
But Nick, more importantly, I want Penny Mordaunt to be.
Why?
I tell you why. Because she's the only one who kind of sort of was not close with Boris. And I think if you do want a new start, just like we had with Major and Cameron, I think let's go for it, because
Tom Tugendhat.
I can't pronounce his surname, so I don't want to go. Could you imagine the speaker saying,
"All right, try it with me." All right, hang on a minute. You don't want Tom Tugendhat because you can't pronounce his surname. Try it with me, Ravi. Listen to me.
Okay.
Say Tug.
Tug.
Heart.
Yeah, but how could Lindsay say that? Tugendhat.
There you go. Got there in the end. Newcastle. Hello, Mark.
Hello,
Mark.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
It's the first time I've been on this show, but I was listening to your lady before that lived in Belgium.
Yeah.
And had everything paid for. I was just sort of wondering who actually paid for it all?
Her employers.
Her employers. But she said it was a national thing.
She said that's...
She said it was a normal thing, but it happens in Belgium.
Standard, is what she said.
So I'm a bit perplexed by that, because obviously I work in the UK, I work in Newcastle upon Tyne, and my employers as good as they are, don't pay for everything.
No.
And I find it a little bit difficult to find anywhere that would pay for everything, as you alluded to before about the luncheon vouchers.
Well, it wasn't me alluding to it. She said it.
Well, I know that, but then you alluded to the lunch vouchers paying for certain things.
Yeah, certain awful things.
Disgusting.
Yeah, which we don't need to go into on this show.
Absolutely, we don't need to. But some of your callers are missing the point here, I think, about the actual Conservative deal going on. We need to miss that, and what we need to look at is the long-term, absolute, complex issue of energy.
The absolute complex issue of energy.
Yes, which is very, very straightforward, but it's been complicated by certain parties. Obviously, the new powers to be in Putin has now started releasing gas to Europe.
What are you talking about, Mark?
Well, Putin's opened up the lines for gas to the rest of Europe.
Rootin' Tootin has opened up the lines for gas to the rest of Europe.
Yes, he has.
My understanding was that he closed them off. But go on.
He had, but he's opened up recently.
Right.
Because obviously he needs a little bit of support.
He needs support?
Of course he does. From people who can damage him. He's now trying to negate that damage by trying to be nice to them.
Right. I have no idea what you're talking about. I suspect that you don't either, but, at least you used up a lot of time. Thanks, Mark. Is it just me?
No.
Apparently not. Chelsea, Adam.
Hello, Nick. I want to know which idiot drinks alcohol not to get drunk. The whole point of alcohol is to get drunk, and if they don't want people to get drunk, they shouldn't sell alcohol. And there's no career-minded politician that would dare tell people to stop drinking. And the medics, the doctors they're under so much pressure, they've probably got more alcoholic problems than anybody else that coming to see to visit them.
Well, medics are famous for the amount that they drink. But when you say get drunk, what do you mean by drunk? You mean like rolling around, steaming, or? I'm
talking about going to the pub and then staggering home drunk.
Right. See, that's not why most people drink, I don't think.
Why do you think they drink, Nick?
Well, they drink because there is an effect between no alcohol and what you've just described, which is the fun part in between. It loosens you up a bit. It gives you a smile. You don't have to be falling flat in your face.
I'm just saying they're wasting their time then, Nick. You're talking about probably your social drinkers, but you can lump them all together. Sooner or later, you're going to develop an alcohol problem.
That's completely untrue. Most people do not develop an alcohol problem.
Have you seen the statistics to back that up?
The statistics to back up that most people don't have an alcohol problem. Well, yeah, just how many alcoholics are in this country, and how many people drink alcohol, and then you come to your own conclusion, Adam.
You just had a professor on telling us we've got a serious problem here.
Yeah, we do. But that does not translate to everybody that drinks has an alcohol problem.
I didn't say everybody. I said it's a serious problem. If you've got one alcoholic wife beater, isn't that one alcoholic wife beater too much?
Yeah, but the wife beater part is not what we're talking about. We're talking about being drinking too much, which is not necessarily the same as being an alcoholic.
So what is too much? You're confusing me in it. What is that?
I'm confusing you.
What is it? Yes. I thought you had a professor on to tell us this country has an alcoholic problem. People are drinking too much.
That's right.
Yeah. So that means they're getting drunk.
It doesn't necessarily mean they're getting drunk. I mean, if more than 5 large glasses of wine a week damages your DNA, then having 6 large glasses of wine over a period of a week does not mean to say that you're getting drunk. That's the point here, that it's a very small amount, relatively speaking, of alcohol that can damage you, according to this new research.
So what sends people over the edge then? I'm still a bit confused. You're telling me there is a large there's more people being able to control their drink more than the problem drinkers.
Of course.
But your professor just came on and said there's more problem drinkers. So
no, he didn't. There are more problem drinkers than there used to be, but there are not more problem drinkers than people who do not have a problem with alcohol who are also drinking it.
So why was the report commissioned then?
Why was the report commissioned? To see what the state of the nation is.
So it's okay, as far as you're concerned, there isn't a problem then, if I understood you correctly.
Adam, I don't think you understand anything correctly. In a brief 3-hour show, I can't muster up the interest in continuing that conversation for a moment longer. Painful. Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy? Woking, Steve. Yes,
hello.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I do believe that the only two parties at the moment that seem to have any idea about the unions and the general working population seem to be slightly the Liberals, but most definitely the Green Party. They seem to be telling us what good the unions have done our country and how beneficial to our country unions have been, whereas the other parties just seem to denigrate the unions and make out that they're the most evil people you could come across, forgetting that the unions are half the public population in this country.
Yes, but if you vote for the Green Party, you are essentially well, no, it's a dangerous thing to say, but you will not have your voice represented. Unfortunately, what we need is proportional representation, a rainbow coalition. That's what we need.
Well, I disagree with you there because, look, the Labour Party is an enemy of the British people. The Conservative Party is an enemy of the British people. The Conservative Party teaches to hate the Labour Party. The Labour Party teaches to hate the Conservatives. Most people in this country now are fed up with both those two political parties, and I think at the next election we will have quite a big protest vote.
Right, and like I say, your vote will not be represented in a Parliament. Your opinions will not be represented in Parliament because of the system that we've got. It's whoever gets a large enough minority gets 100% of the power. So I think one of the things that Keir Starmer could do, apart from abolishing the House of Lords, is say that I am going to introduce proportional representation and we will be run as a coalition. And it won't be... compared to the last at least 2 years, or you could say 12 years, it won't be a coalition of chaos compared to what we've just experienced. Newbury. Hello, Colin.
Yeah, hiya, Nick. All right. Yeah, I thought the best of the two was Rishi Sunak, because that Liz Truss, her tax cuts are like her trade deals. If you ask her where the trade deals are, and they're mythical, she's absolutely tax everybody to heaven, because what happens is all she'll do is she'll then come up, and as you said, she was the right-hand man of Boris Johnson, and he was the biggest liar in the world. So what difference is she going to make? We should be thanking Rishi Sunak for getting rid of Johnson, not saying that he stabbed him in the back.
But the whining sense of victimhood from the Boris Johnson Appreciation Society is just preposterous, really. It's a wonder to see that they don't accept that he did anything wrong just seconds after he got turfed out for doing a multitude of things wrong. Because they judge him by their own standards. So they're just as bad as him, aren't they? You may think that, Colin. I couldn't possibly comment, but thanks for that. Thaden Boys, Guy.
Yes, hello, Nick.
Hello, Guy.
Hi.
Good, thanks.
I'm 57. I've been a drummer since I was 16. A professional musician. The pandemic ruined me mentally in the sense of I thought, okay, this is my business retiring me, because in the entertainment business, it retires you. You don't retire from it.
Right.
And the work dried up. I've cashed in pensions, albeit in the name of a pension, and it's starting to pick up again, which is good. But at the same time, I would literally sit in my lounge and have a beer because there wasn't much else to do. I fed up with walking around forests in Epping.
Right.
And right, yeah, fabulous. And I'd look at the drum kit and think, why am I going to practice and keep my technique going? Because there's no work out there.
Right.
And being the age that I am, I've been in musical theatre for 30 years, and all of a sudden, all the musicians that are coming into the industry were getting the jobs, even pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But I kind of gave up the ghost in a little way.
And took up alcohol.
I took up alcohol, but I still play drums, and I'm still really good at what I do.
Are you still drinking as much now as you were before the COVID nightmare, or are you at the level that you settled at during the lockdown?
I'm bored, Nick. I'm bored.
So what does that mean?
I'm in a business of entertainment where every day, every time I play my drums with a band is different to the last time that I played drums with a band. So I get bored very easily, and that's what we do in the entertainment industry.
Right, but you haven't mentioned alcohol yet.
Oh, well, yeah, loads of it.
So that is the roundabout point to what you're saying, is that during lockdown you couldn't do your thing, so you replaced drumming with booze.
No, it's around a point of saying, it's a roundabout point of saying, is this really the end for me?
So it actually has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Well, I hope it isn't, Matt, but I'm talking about alcohol this hour, not drumming. Greenford. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick. Yeah, I think because they're Conservative, maybe they're supposed to be moneyed, all the higher echelons, but I think Penny Mordaunt's coming up because she might just be the more human face, and it might be a case of new legs, but I think Rishi Sunak is well known, but I think that Indian newspaper sort of like painted him as a picture of like making loads of money on the finance market. So, well, the jury's out, isn't it,
Well, yeah, literally and figuratively, the jury is out. Yeah. Greenford. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick. Yeah, Liz Truss, she's wooden. She's a Remainer. That's two good things. And she's also had experience of cabinet government, so she'll be good with the cabinet secretary when she's PM.
Okay. Wooden is a good thing. Well, I think what the country needs now is less clowning. That's true. Let's have a call in Greenford. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick. Yeah.
Paul.
As Liz Truss is a Remainer, and if she wins, will she repeal Brexit? And what about publications like The Spectator and Private Eye? Surely they give a good digest, on the events,
That's no and yes in that order.
Yeah.
Another satisfied customer. Greenford. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Nick. Yeah, I think that Saul Bellow-folk being sacked because he was on the picket line, I think they might be able to appeal to middle-class Tory voters if they clean up their act. So they might get some, and I know, with the advent of Tony Blair reforming the party, but I know the Corbyn era was a bit downhill as far as the media were concerned, but I think Labour can do it. You said they've missed the open goal, but I think they can do it.
Well, we'll see. Isn't it exciting? Leicester. Khalid.
Hi, Nick. You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, I think this is a ridiculous policy. I mean, as far as Rwanda is concerned, first of all, it's the people are trying to get out of Rwanda. It's people trying to emigrate from Rwanda. It's, obviously there was as far as Rwanda is concerned, there was a genocide there, and in fact, there's still skirmishes going on a daily basis there.
Well, we take asylum seekers from Rwanda, which is truly bizarre.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now the thing is, though, if instead of spending, if you look at the documentation, it's all documented. 120 billion pounds of taxpayers' money is wasted annually on ridiculous things. Things like a skip with lights on, spending £95,000 on a skip. This is what our government is doing. It's ridiculous.
What skip is that?
It's all documented. They took that. They had a skip, and it was supposed to be a piece of art apparently. And all they did, all some students did, was put some lights on it, and they said it's a piece of art, and it cost them £95,000, bizarrely. Anyway, this is one example of total ridiculous wastage. With our money is being wasted on. What I'm saying, that money can be better utilised with France. Say, look, listen, you guys get your act in order. The Spanish should get their act in order. People who want to come over, that they should be processed there, rather than just letting them come on the boats, and then we have to process them here. What I'm saying is that, look, as far as Truss and Sunak are concerned, I think they're ridiculously, if it was any of their relatives coming over on the boats, they would fight tooth and nail to keep them here. They wouldn't send them over to Rwanda. It's because it's from countries that, they don't support. In fact, Sunak is a total was in support of Priti Patel's policy, who's completely in support of Modi of India, and he is a product of RSS, a terrorist organisation.
Okay, well, I think you're way off topic on practically everything that you've said so far, starting with some modern art thing that I've never heard of. I think there's way more egregious examples of governmental waste than a skip with lights on. But thanks for that, Khalid. Guildford, hello, Peter.
Hello, Nick. Now Keir Starmer's rejected nationalisation, he's turned his back on the unions. He hasn't turned his back on the unions. Well, he's trying to appeal to the Daily Mail and people like that. I'm not sure that's true. Don't worry, He's not trying to appeal to the Daily Mail, but the truth is that the last time around, the working class did not vote Labour. Well, that's because Labour isn't offering an alternative. It's got to be proud to back the workers. It's got to be proud to back our nurses, our railwaymen, all the people that keep the country going. Yeah, but you can be proud and back them without actually standing on a picket line. Well, I think it is the Labour Party. The unions created the Labour Party. We should be proud of our history. Yeah, but interestingly, the people in the unions last time around didn't really vote for the Labour Party. They voted Conservative. So it's almost as though the parties have flipped. That the Tories are now appealing to the working class, and more middle class now are voting Labour. Well, I think what it is, Nick, is that the Labour Party's left a vacuum, and people like that horrible Farage and people like that picked up the gap. And what we've got to do is say, look, the capitalists have had it too good for too long. We are representing the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, all you people out there. That's who we're on the side of. We are the Labour Party. And the way we are going to start taxing the rich and powerful. But the only way you can do that is by acquiring power in the first place. And I would suggest that you're not going to do that by frightening Middle England by looking like... By corresponding to the attack that the Tories want to level at them, that they're militant and leftist and they're socialist and communist and all these scare phrases that will come out with, and people will say, "Oh yeah, that's quite right. No, we better vote Conservative again." The trouble is, Nick, the right-wing newspapers in a couple of years' time will be calling Starmer a communist. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They will, an enemy of the people, of course they will. And the trouble is, with this biased media that we have, the left can't get its view across. But don't you think that because of that exact scenario that you just described, he would want to give them as little ammunition as possible? No, I think you stand out there and millions of people out here worried about their fuel bills. Not just people in work, people that are out of work. Right, so you would want somebody to act like Jeremy Corbyn. And what happened? Yes. What happened to Jeremy Corbyn? He lost. And then we got another 5 years of the Conservative Party and another 5 years next time around, I bet, if this kind of thing keeps up. He's trying not to be Jeremy Corbyn, because you know what happened to that. Now, you can agree with him all you like,
But the fact of the matter is he lost. Dumfries. Hello, Ian.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I can't believe how much media coverage we've had about who's going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party.
Too much?
You know what I mean? Far too much. It's irrelevant. But this is what the Tories seem to do. They seem to
irrelevant.
Deflect from the. I think it's pretty irrelevant to us because who does it? It doesn't really matter. We should call for a general election anyway. And there's more pressing matters. You know, like the price of gas, electricity, food, and all the rest of it. These are far more important things. And,
but all of these...
social housing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I understand all that, but all of these things are issues that a new PM could address and do something about.
I know, but the thing is, it doesn't matter what they actually say anyway before they get elected, because they're just going to change their mind anyway. You know what I mean? They just say what they have to say to get elected. That's what they do all the time. All politicians do that. You know what I mean? Throughout the years. You can't trust any of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Personally, that's what I think.
There was that bloke talking about Penny Mordaunt on the new news just now, and interesting because she does bang on about her Royal Navy credentials, don't she? Penny Mordaunt's claims about her Royal Navy credentials have been questioned by senior officers in the Royal Navy. During the Tory leadership contest, she said her experience in the Royal Naval Reserve and values of military service make her ideally suited to become Prime Minister. Groovy. Oh, that was the wrong one. I keep mixing up groovy and goofy. Oh well, never mind. The Portsmouth MP's candidacy announcement included a reference to the Royal Navy when she said that leadership should be less about the leader and more about the ship. Mordaunt, who went on to claim that she, perhaps better than any other candidate, understood the government's responsibility to support the armed forces. But the final straw for some came when one of her supporters, Tory MP George Freeman, claimed in a live TV interview that she had fought in the Navy. And last night, a highly decorated former senior Royal Navy officer said, No. How's she got the nerve to say that? I thought that Tom Tugendhat was an actual real-life forces person. The highly decorated former senior Royal Naval officer said she isn't currently a trained or paid reservist. She's never qualified or been commissioned. She's been banging the naval drum for days, and enough is enough. How she presented herself and how has she allowed herself to be presented have been deeply misleading. Penny Mordaunt signed up as a Royal Naval Reservist in 2010. She was made an honorary commander in 2019 and an honorary captain last year. But she's not served on an operational deployment. She does not currently fulfil the Royal Naval's reserve training commitments or receive a salary, as her entries to the MP's interests register confirm. She was Defence Secretary for just 85 days before being booted out by Bodger Johnson. Before that, she was Armed Forces Minister from May 2015 to July 2016. Imagine being thought of as so inept that you get booted out by Bodger Johnson.
Yeah. Wait.
Embarrassing. She was made an honorary commander in 2019 and an honorary captain. An honorary is defined as conferred as an honour without the usual requirements or functions. And then she says, like I just mentioned, perhaps I, better than any other candidate, as, am suited to be a PM. I think that if you say that, you should be excluded from being the next dear leader for, just peddling this stuff. Actually, she should be excluded for peddling that vomitous video of hers, which was all flags and Spitfires and bunting and bulldogs signifying nothing. In fact, that just about sums up the Brexit that she's such a big fan of. Flags and Spitfires and bunting and bulldogs signifying nothing. No wonder the constipated, impotent old duffers who get to vote for this shambles love her so much. She puts lead in their souvenir Brexit withdrawal pencils. God, it's just all so painful. Windsor. Simon.
Oh.
Yes, Simon.
Yeah, about Keir Starmer, that's why he's sit on the fence.
What?
Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer.
He can't say anything
Right.
Because he's among them.
He's among them?
Yes.
Among who?
Among the Conservatives. He's just been put there to stop everything our Labour parties believe.
So Keir Starmer is an undercover Conservative operative.
He's a stooge.
Well, that's an interesting thought there, Simon. It's probably not the first time someone has thought of that. But
no, he's a stooge because he can't say the policy because he doesn't have any.
Right. Well, I'm not entirely sure that he doesn't have any policies. He might not have the policies that you agree with.
He's a stooge.
A stooge.
So he doesn't have to say anything.
Right.
So
well, at the moment,
to keep a lead on the Labour Party not to say anything better.
Yeah, but at the moment he doesn't really have to say anything. The Tory Party are doing a pretty good job of destroying themselves. All he has to do is sit back and watch them do it. Unfortunately, the Labour Party are the world beaters in destroying themselves, so I wouldn't expect them to win next time around.
Even if there is no election, I don't think Conservative will win election in England.
You don't think the Conservatives will win the next election?
It will never be one.
Oh, you don't think they're going to have another election?
They won't reach because the country is going to be on a revolution like in French Revolution. Because now they don't think about anything else except to destroy the country completely.
I would not actually be surprised if they did find some sort of Trumpian way to ban the next election because of, I don't know, like a worldwide emergency, or there's another pandemic, or the war in the Ukraine spreads.
This is where is it coming from? Because they can't help the people in England, taxpayers people,
yes,
but they take the money to Ukraine.
Right, I've got a couple of words
to buy
there.
Ammunition, to do everything.
To buy ammunition, yeah.
And what do you think about Putin?
What do I think about him? About rootin' tootin'? I think
Mr. Putin.
I think that the world would be a better place without him.
But I think he is a common. I think they want same bed.
What?
They share same bed.
What?
Why the price of food is going up? Because of Ukraine. I never heard about Ukraine was feeding the world.
Yeah,
before,
well, we've learned.
But now Ukraine is feeding the world.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore, it ain't. Not feeding the world anymore, no.
So the price goes up every time, every minute?
The price of grain is going up every minute. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, but crude oil, he hasn't gone up that far. Why the petrol is going up?
Well, these are all very, very good questions, Simon. Can you pop them on an email?
Email, you got emails?
Yeah. Just write an email on a piece of paper, put my name on it, and if you just hand it to your post person, then it'll probably get to me eventually, all right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, no, thank you. Another satisfied customer. I'm joined now by the Telegraph columnist and former Conservative MP and Minister Rob Wilson. Hello, Rob.
Good evening, Nick.
Do you think that the choice between the two is an invidious one, because both of them have the smell of the Johnson regime on them, and the public aren't going to forget that. We associate them with him. It's not a clean break. These are actually of the available choices that we had at the beginning of this, two of the worst ones to have actually reached the final.
I'm not sure you're right in thinking that the general public want a clean break. What they want is they want the manifesto that Boris Johnson took to them, and they elected him on with a big majority, to be implemented, but implemented efficiently and with real delivery. And they, Sunak and Truss to some extent, are continuing with many of the policies that Johnson had, but promising to actually deliver this time, because so much hasn't been delivered when it should have been over the past few years. So I don't think the public has rejected Johnson's policies outright. I think they just want a fresh face, a fresh person that can actually deliver those policies.
You know, looking at the both of them on TV, I do detect a certain sort of the public deflating a bit when they see them, because as everybody knows, Boris Johnson was like the Heineken of politicians. He was the one that could reach the parts that other politicians couldn't reach, and he was a performer and this funny bloke off the telly. And neither of these two have got it at all, do they? So it's gonna come down to what they've delivered so far, which is pretty abysmal, let's face it. They can't really boast about being the party of fiscal responsibility or of law and order or of having the NHS safe in their hands or any of these things. So what it's now coming down to is this sort of embarrassing dive to the bottom on woke issues. It's all a bit pathetic, isn't it?
Well, firstly, I would say in response to that there are very few politicians over the years that have had the X factor. Tony Blair is possibly one, Margaret Thatcher is possibly another, but it's very hard, other than those two, of the prime ministers really since the Second World War, to find, you know, leaders that had that real X factor. What I'd say about the Sunak and Truss, whoever wins, they have nearly 2 years to prove that they can deliver and communicate effectively with the public. And often candidates, once they become Prime Minister, do grow in office. That the power of the office does add to the cachet that those people have. So, for example, if Liz Truss wins, I think she will grow very quickly into the job. Sunak could also do the same. So I don't think all is lost with the public or with the Conservative Party by any means at this stage of the electoral cycle.
Do you think that Brexit is the big elephant in the room that neither of them want to address, because it's been, by all measures really, a catastrophic failure? They have an entire bespectacled person whose existence is based on finding benefits of Brexit, and so far he's come up with, we can change the exit signs in the Dartford Tunnel from metres to yards.
Well, look, I mean, the whole purpose of Brexit was to bring back control to the UK, and I think that there's a long way to go. This is something that is going to be with us for many decades, not just a year or a couple of years, and we're at the very early stages. Now, I think you could argue, and I think you could argue quite successfully, that the advantages of Brexit so far haven't been seen very readily by the public. But I think over the next 3 to 5 years, with the right government, with the right leadership, those benefits could come to the fore quite quickly.
Are you confident about that?
I'm pretty confident, yes, because the EU has many. The reasons why we left the EU are still there, and many countries in the EU are struggling with it. I was in Italy recently. They've got their own problems, and I think if you go across many of the southern countries in the EU and also along the eastern border, there are some significant problems, financial, economic, social, and all those problems are partly reasons why we left the EU. So it's all looking across the channel. Although we may have our own problems, all is not rosy within the EU by any means.
What would you say to people who suspect that we are never going to get Brexit done, because what the government actually want is this constant simmering fight to distract the attention of people from their abysmal record? What they really want is to constantly have the French, essentially, to have a go at and point and tell everybody, well, it's not working out as advertised because it's their fault.
Well, I think what will happen is, over a period of years, the relationship with the EU will settle down, and it will become quite a normal international relationship and quite a close relationship. And some of the reasons why, for example, the French are treating us quite poorly at the moment will fade away with time, and I think we'll get a much better relationship with our French colleagues and partners, and also with the EU. But it will take time because, nobody likes to be rejected, and the British public rejected the EU for a whole multitude of reasons that we don't need to go over now. But relations will improve, things will get better, and we will have to economically cooperate. We will have to cooperate across a whole series of different things, but we will not be part of the EU.
How does it sound? Prime Minister Liz Truss. Does that have a ring to it, or does that sound a bit alarming?
Well, I think she's proving a lot of people wrong, because I think people thought when they saw her get on the final ticket, they thought that she would come across rather badly. In fact, she's come across as warmer, more on the ball, more smarter than many people thought she would be, and certainly the Sunak camp thought that they were going to have a fairly easy procession, but it's not turning out that way. Far from it.
That's an unsolicited testimonial. The Foreign Secretary is smarter than many people thought she would be.
Well, in politics, when you talk to other politicians publicly, they'll compliment you till the cows come home. Privately, they will have a quite different opinion, and many people have private views about politicians that are very unfair. And I think that was the case with Liz Truss, that some people have been very unfair to her. She is a very able, smart person who can certainly do a great job for this country.
Okay, good to talk to you. Thanks very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Rob Wilson, Telegraph columnist and former Conservative MP and Minister. Southgate. Hello, Shirley.
Hello. Yes. Well, I just wanted to say, I know it was quite a long time ago, but I used to enjoy being whistled at. I worked near Covent Garden, and all the porters there in early morning when I went to work, and they just used to whistle, and I quite enjoyed it. So I think the women today, unfortunately, because of all the sex and violence on the television, the men have changed as well. So the women had to change alongside them. But I really did enjoy it. And one incident, when I used to be working in an office and I used to be at the photocopying machine, one of the managers used to come up and put his arm around my shoulder and say, "Hello, darling, how are you?" And I found that, it was quite nice, really. But then we had a woman come in, and it happened to her, and she complained about it, and he was told off, and he was put on a warning. So life is certainly different now than it was, because now I must tell you that I'm nearly 90 3/4, so it was quite a long time ago.
Yeah, right. But, I know that it used to be acceptable, but is there any part of you that think that you just put up with it because you were expected to go along with it?
No, I quite enjoyed it.
Right.
Especially 16, 17, 18-year-old, I found it was a compliment. One time I went through the market and I had a patch over my eye, and they all called out, "Aye, aye, darling." It was all a bit of banter, that was all.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Shirley. Aberdeen. Hello, Jane.
Yes, I'm here.
Jane.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks. What would you like to say?
Well, I just wanted to say, hold on, because my radio is on in the background, so I'm going to stop that. Alexa, stop. I just wanted to say, I think it's ridiculous that we're focusing on these kind of bans. Why are we going to ban people from wolf whistling and showing appreciation to women? That's not a bad thing. I don't think that anybody should be banning something that is showing an appreciation to somebody. What's wrong with that?
Well, okay, but how far does that go? I mean, you can show an appreciation that you fancy someone by walking behind them all the way to their home.
No, well, that's a different thing, isn't it? Because that's stalking someone.
Right, so as long as it's at a distance and once, that's okay.
Well, yeah, if somebody feels uncomfortable and you're harassing them, then obviously that's not okay. But if you're showing somebody that you think that they're attractive, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Right. Well, that's sort of two in a row with the same opinion. I'm kind of surprised. But and so have you never felt uncomfortable in public then with the attentions of a man?
Well, yeah, I have done. But then do you not think that, I mean, personally, I think that should be in a woman's control, because if you feel uncomfortable, then you need to express that. I feel uncomfortable with the way that you're making me feel. What I feel is now, is it not okay for somebody to say that they appreciate you? How bloody woke are we going to go? It's okay to say, I appreciate you. If you're making someone feel uncomfortable, that's a whole new level.
Right. Okay. But you can't know that someone's going to feel uncomfortable before you whistle at them in the street.
Well, no, you can't, and you're right. But then if you do something and someone says, I feel uncomfortable, then you stop.
At that point. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jane. Braintree, Rabina.
Good morning.
Rabina.
Good morning.
Almost. What would you like to say?
Well, I'm 94 years old, and as I said to Dan, it was a compliment in my day. If a workman whistled at you, you just went back and walked on. If a man followed you and was a nuisance to you and you had any brains about you, you knew how to put him down anyway. So what's all the fuss about a wolf whistle?
Okay, I continue to be surprised. That's three in a row, all expressing the same opinion. Thanks.
Yeah, well, we're all old, sensible old women, aren't we?
Well, it goes right in with the... there was a YouGov poll, I think it's YouGov, which said that of wolf whistling, it really is an issue with younger women aged 18 to 29. About a fifth of them think that it should be criminalised. 2% of women over 60 think the same thing. So I guess that's just a reflection of this of the age. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Rabina. One more. Bermondsey, Lavinia Grace.
Oh, hi, Nick.
How you doing? Go ahead.
Not too bad, thank you. Well, what I'd like to say, years ago, what it is, I used to work in a bar, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Like a bar, like pub sort of thing.
Yeah.
And every time I used to bend over, to get to the bottom sort of shelf, the manager used to come sort of by and smack my bum. I used to get it often, actually. And at the time, I never used to think, oh, my God, he's trying to touch me up or anything. I used to think it was... a bit of banter, a bit of fun, and it's also part of life, and it gives you sort of, what's the word, it makes you who you are today. You can handle things. But the women of today moaning over the wolf sort of whistles and that sort of thing, I think that's absolutely pathetic. What it's all about, it's all about growing up. They need to grow up. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I continue to be surprised. That's like 4, 5 all in a row. Lavinia Grace, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to leave it there. But thanks very much for that. Whitehaven. Hello, Robin.
Hello.
Robin.
I think that Rishi is possibly unpopular with the membership is because what we've seen, the Conservative Party seem to have become a cult of Boris Johnson as far as the membership's concerned. And I think some of them within the Conservative Party would like to frame it as holding Rishi Sunak responsible for the toppling of Boris Johnson.
Right.
And really, Boris Johnson toppled himself, really.
Exactly. Yes. But he and his acolytes, his cult members, as you would describe them, they refuse to acknowledge that he has actually done anything wrong. They're always flailing around looking for someone else to blame rather than looking in the mirror and acknowledging that he is responsible for his own downfall.
Yeah, well, I think that's the sad state of the Conservative Party at the moment. I think 2016, the referendum totally decimated the Conservative Party. It was basically taken over by the right of the party, and some more experienced, more suitable, qualified Conservative MPs were ejected from the party, had the whip removed. And it seems to have gone down since then, and I can't see it. It's a pretty sad state of affairs when you see the candidates who were for the leadership of the Conservative Party, and like we've heard, is a lot of people don't like any of them. But out of the lot of them, I think probably the most qualified and experienced is Rishi Sunak. I know he's been Chancellor, and I know that he's probably get held for some of the blame of the way that the government's been and whatever else. But I think Rishi's been the mainstay of the Conservative Party. He's tried his best, the furlough schemes and things like that.
Oh, no, I hate that phrase, Robin. He tried his best. That was appended to Boris Johnson so many times. Still is. Oh, he's doing his best. Leave him alone. But there's some good points there. Thanks for that. Yeah, it does feel a little bit as though there's been a reverse takeover of the Conservative Party by the UKIP tendency. And that's where they're going, and thereby dragging us too. Teignmouth, David.
Yes, I object. Part of being a democracy is one should not agree, but respect somebody of an opposite view.
Yeah, even if they say something really
just
stupid.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Just listen. Yeah, I object to be called an idiot. I'm 82.
I'm 82 years old. Yes, you made it.
Well, all right, you start taking the mickey, but I've had a very successful field in education.
Have you?
And I'm not an idiot. And I would have, the man who said, there were 10 people or 9 people, they're all idiots. Well, we're not. We just don't have the same view of life. And
right. What's your view? What's your view of life, Mr. Educator?
What I can do is out this stupid sarcasm with pours out of your mouth. My view of life.
I understood mouth, but nothing else in that sentence. Go on.
Good, right. But what my view of life is that people should, as far as possible, support their own themselves. So it gives people with success can succeed.
Right. And here it comes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Here it comes. I'm
all right, Jack, and to hell with everybody else. That seems to be the policy here, David.
No. The policy is that by doing that, you generate income. So the people that have...
right, so people who aren't as lucky in life as you are, to hell with them.
Well, no, I'm just listening. They're going to be helped out of it.
Helped out of it by this party. Helped out of it by this party.
I spent my time in further education, and I've turned a lot of kids from potential failures because of their background.
In further education? What kids are in further education?
What do you mean, what's your kids in further?
Further education is 18 plus. Your story is beginning to fall apart here, David. Better luck next time. 03, calm down, dear. Yeah, he made a lot of sense. He has turned kids around in further education. Yeah, okay. Dunstable, Anthony.
Good afternoon, Nick. I'm Anthony from Dunstable. I was really impressed by Liz Truss. Her responses on policies such as, you cannot tax your way into growth, and nor can you print your way into growth, as Rishi Sunak did, with £450 billion printed. It's funny how he uses the term the credit card, the country's credit card. He well and truly went into the country's overdraft as Chancellor of the Exchequer, and I think.
But could he actually have done anything else under the circumstances of COVID? As that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
No, I'm talking about just before the beginning of 2021, which the market was actually picking up quite well. He used quite a huge amount of reserves through printing that £450 billion that could have been used to the latter end towards his time as Chancellor of the Exchequer in alleviating the inflation crisis, but he failed to do that.
Right, I'm not sure how that would have worked, but thanks for that, Anthony. Bournemouth, hello, John.
Can you hear?
What?
Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. I don't want to offend you by this, okay? But the point is this. I voted for the Brexit, and I voted for Conservative Party in 2019.
I bet you did.
And this country, it's the leftists are always saying you can't say this, you can't say that, and thinking like this. Now, I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, and I don't think they'll make Rishi the Prime Minister because a lot of them are racist. But I'll tell you this. I have lived in this country a while, and the country is going very badly. Brexit was a gamble, okay? It was a bit of a gamble. We won the Brexit.
You didn't win anything.
And we won the vote.
Yeah, but you didn't win anything.
And I'm making preparation now because this country is going so terribly. All of the left is always just talking about, I can't even say the things they talk about because, you can't say this, you go to jail if you criticize Elton John and this and that. But I will, now listen, I'll make a serious point. A lot of people in this country feel it is like communist police state. I have 3 things I want to say, I can't say none of them.
Like a communist police state.
And after voting the Brexit, I'm making preparation now because I used to work in UAE, and like a lot of my friends, I'll leave also because it's suffocating.
That would be great. Leave to UAE where you can have real freedom of expression.
Bye.
Perth, Mike.
Yeah, Nick. Yeah, I was. We have people in the UK, people whose relatives, fathers, brothers have been, if you'll excuse me, been beheaded by these ISIS. The words fail me. But anyway, have been beheaded by ISIS, of which she was a part. Shouldn't they be consulted? Should their opinion not matter? In her coming back, should they be dismissed?
Well, would it be ordinary for their opinions to make a difference to the punishment meted out to somebody who had nothing to do with their particular case?
Well, she was a part of the system. She was a part of the system. Let's not beat about the bush.
She was a part of the system, but what kind of a part? I mean, she wasn't she wasn't leading the gang. She wasn't a major player in the gang, as far as we know. She wasn't doing any of the killing herself. We have absolutely no idea what she actually did out there, and yet we're certain what the punishment should be. It just seems a bizarre position.
So you think the relatives of they should play no part in this, her being allowed back?
But what you're suggesting is that she had a hand in the death of those relatives, but she didn't, as far as we know.
As far as we know. You're suggesting that she should be given a fair crack of the whip.
But what you're suggesting, Mike, is, as you just said, as far as we know, she had no part in it, but she should get punished anyway. That doesn't sound like the ordinary course of a law-abiding country, does it? We've got no idea what you did, but we're going to punish you for life anyway. Name me one other person in the history of this country that's been punished like that, well, in the modern history anyway. East Ham. Hello, Alfred.
Hello there, Nick. Yeah, the sacking of the Labour guy, I suppose how does it look? It looks like a standoff, that's a short form, but I think we're talking about the so-called optics, that favourite word of the lobby, don't we? You know, how things look, to the public. I mean, I tell you what, previous to this, what made me sit up straight, and this didn't look good at all. It was when, I can't even remember, what happened next? It actually took away what occasioned the comment. It was either Keir Starmer being elected to the as leader of the party, or he was in it and he won some by-election or something that was taking place. But the first person who came up on the radio to congratulate him on this was Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson. And then the next thing I read was Peter Mandelson had been advising Keir Starmer all along. I mean, this is Peter Mandelson, 3 times disgraced in office, even by Blair. I mean, they were joined at the hip. It does something to and not taken back the 3rd time. But there was the mortgage thing. I hope he's not advising Keir Starmer on his mortgage arrangements.
Well, it doesn't really. Does it actually matter who you get your advice from?
Well, if it's Peter Mandelson, I think it does.
If they're good at winning.
As what?
No, if they
but
was
winning as what?
Well, making the person that he is acting on behalf of win the race that he's engaged in.
Well, I mean, can we hear the voice of in this when he sacked the
well,
minister?
look, Pete, Alfred, if you're after somebody in politics who is going to act in a pious and saintly manner to get their person to the top of the tree, then you'll be waiting from now until the end of time. It's a dirty game, and so you want a shark. You just got to have your shark, that's all. It's kind of like an agent in show business. Oxted, hello, Pat.
Hi. It's always difficult when we hang on. I forget how to get round to what I want to say. But I think that we will, the immigrants, we will integrate with the immigrants because the immigrants are coming over here in such vast numbers. They're prepared to put up with a lot more at the moment because they've nothing to go back to. And they'll come here and we'll find in about 50 years' time that the population will be taken over by the immigrants and we will integrate with them. And peace will gradually reign because this is what happened when the Europeans went to America. It was 2 generations or 100 years, wasn't it, before the Americans, the trouble that the immigrants went through in their determination to make a life for themselves in America. It took time, didn't it? And I think that that's what we're battling here. And I do think as well that we don't own this land that we live in. We're just custody. We're in custody of it while we're alive. And that history will probably show that the immigrants came here. We will integrate, and those that don't like it, we will immigrate elsewhere. And life will settle down, and the UK, being an island, is an obvious destination to come to, because Europe don't want them either, do they?
Well, there's plenty more in Europe than there are here. It's a relative trickle that make it to here from Europe. Most stay in Europe. Most stay in the country next to the one that they're fleeing.
They do at the moment, but if the population of immigrants gets so big here, they may find that they will rather come here because they will have built a new colony here in the UK. And I think history will...
You're not listening to what I'm saying, though. There's more people residing in European countries that they travel through before they get here than do come here. There's more in Germany and France and Spain and Italy and Greece and so on than come here. It's a relatively small trickle. It's not a vast number. It's not a wave of immigrants coming here, Pat.
No, but maybe in Europe there aren't sufficient of them to make so much difference. But here, they've already established a way, not an unscrupulous, but they've already established a way here because they speak the language and they've got family and friends here already.
The ones that come here do.
Yes. So that it's Britain. Europe is something quite different. It may never happen in Europe because
but but Europe is, but Greece isn't, and Spain isn't, and France isn't, not compared to where we are.
Then I think you're looking even far ahead. I'm really only thinking about what I can see might happen in the UK.
Yeah, I don't see why it would happen here and not anywhere else. It's a very... I'm kind of like a bit unbalanced from your argument. I don't quite get where you're coming from, Pat. It's a unique opinion, and I'm somewhat discombobulated by it. But thanks for that. Muswell Hill, Chris.
Hello, good evening, Nick.
Yes, sir.
We really don't know. I mean, she says she wants to come back to stop other girls being radicalised. Maybe she's being sent back by her controllers to put on a suicide belt and go on Saturday afternoon into Tesco's and blow herself up together with 100 other people. What if she would do that? What then would you say? It's 50-50. You could be right. She could be right. She could be genuine. But we don't know that. It's no more than 50-50. Can we take the risk?
It's 50-50 that someone's going to put a suicide belt on. Come off it, Chris. It's not 50-50.
What do you mean? She's joined ISIS, a terrorist organisation with no scruples, with no morals.
At 15.
People who will lie.
At 15.
Who will lie and not even think twice about lying.
Yeah, at 15.
She's joined this organisation. She could well be sent back to do an atrocity within our country.
Well, okay, you could say that about an entire race of people, that there's that they are that each and every one of them is 50-50. It's just an absolutely nonsense statistic that you come up with there, Chris. 50-50. This text says, didn't she smile in that first interview when the journalist asked if she saw the beheadings? She talked about seeing beheaded heads in bins, but said that didn't faze her. For the UK Supreme Court to strip her of her citizenship, there is more to this than we know of. Well, you don't know that there's more to this than you know of. There's precious little that we actually do know. What's odd to me is that people seem absolutely certain of the punishment for the things of which they have no knowledge. Sutton, hello, Lynn.
Hello.
Lynn.
Right, well, I was listening to the entire debate. I felt that Rishi Sunak came across as far more statesmanlike than Liz Truss. I'm very concerned that her grasp of economics doesn't seem very sound at all, that she's making lots of promises about things that people want to hear, but in the long term won't actually solve our problems. I think my main concern, though, is the constant accusation, the one you've just alluded to, that Rishi Sunak is somehow seen as a backstabber for taking action against Boris Johnson. And it bothers me that so many people who will actually have a say in voting for his successor seem quite happy to overlook the fact that he was a proven liar and that they were happy to allow this country to be led by somebody who had such a poor sort of relationship with the truth. I feel that Rishi Sunak was honourable in what he did. I feel that Boris Johnson's cabinet were basically consisting of an awful lot of yes people who were more concerned about their own job than the good of the country. And I think that Rishi would bring back some sort of truth and honesty and raise our standing in the world, because I do think that Boris Johnson actually lowered it with his very poor morals.
Yeah, well, quite considerably. I mean, is there any doubt about that? And it's almost as though we're back in the schoolyard, or maybe a part of the mafia, and you can do anything you like apart from telling on the person that's doing wrong. And that seems to be where we are with the Conservative Party. Boris Johnson can do anything he like. He can lie. He can be a part of a regime that is restricting people's freedoms. And, I mean, in a brief 3-hour show, I haven't got enough time to list his faults. But we will put up with all of that, except for someone who points it out.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we need. We don't like hearing that times are going to be tough, but they are. And we've just got to sort of deal with that rather than sort of, say, well, we'll cut this tax, cut that tax, and we'll pay for it later on.
But politics just the history just tell you that people aren't interested in truth. They're interested in lies, essentially, about how great it will be if only you follow me. Look at Brexit as a recent example. Everything we were promised, where is it? Leicester, Rajesh.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I've listened to your callers, and, just because he's Indian, they trash him, and the Conservative Party... You think they're doing it because he's Indian? Of course it is. Of course it is. All those people who've been talking about him don't know what they're talking about. He was in finance, so what? So what if he was in finance? Were they in finance? Do they know anything about finance? They just hear the newspapers trashing an Indian, and then they go on the bandwagon about him.
Yeah, I think that's. I don't buy that, Rajesh. I don't think that's got anything to do with it. He's Indian. He was essentially involved in what some people might call disaster capitalism. He benefited while hundreds of millions, if not billions of people suffered because of the financial crash, which was precipitated by those that work in the finance industry. Now, he wasn't specifically responsible for it, but he was there at the beginning of it, and his actions and those of the other people in the hedge fund that he was in, who made an unimaginable fortune from it, their actions sort of precipitated the fall. He's not solely responsible, but he made out, very well from it. I don't think that people's objection to that has anything to do with him being Indian, Rajesh. But thanks for that. Rishi Sunak. See, I thought he was the sensible one. Rishi Sunak seeks to revive faltering number 10 bid by attacking woke nonsense.
Oh, fabulous.
You have got to be kidding me. Talk about desperate. Rishi Sunak will seek to revive his flagging bid for the premiership by wading into a series of so-called culture war issues, vowing to stop, quotes, left-wing agitators from bulldozing British values. Oh, you sad, sad man. That is really, really pathetic. That's all you've got? You tried to be sensible and tell people the truth, and that didn't work? Because your immediate audience seems to have joined a cult?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
And now you think, oh, well, if you can't beat them, join them. Oh, my God. With Liz Truss the firm favourite ahead of a critical few days in the leadership contest and ballot papers set to be received by Conservative members from Monday, Sunak will give a speech attacking, quotes, woke nonsense. Oh, Struth. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
You've got to be kidding me. I also thought that Tom Tugendhat was the sensible one as well, and now he's said that Liz Truss is the woman for him. The only one who can unite the party. It's the only one that abides by conservative principles. What, tax cuts for the rich, you mean? Conservative principles. I mean, this is ridiculous. Why don't they just have a clown off? See who can make people laugh from a circus. It's just amazing, isn't it? Woke nonsense. That is what they will. And this is what I was talking about before the news. All that stuff used to work. In fact, it has worked up until relatively recently. But I think a lot of people are thinking, hey, you know what? There's just so much else that's more important. Are you really going to fight the next election on unisex toilets? You are kidding. On statues? Nadine Dorris just made a Cecil Rhodes statue not even a statue. It's like a plaque, grade 2 listed. You know, just in case anybody should think about taking something offensive down. Woke nonsense. You are playing to the bores who prop up the bar at the golf club, and there's not enough of them to put you in power again. And once you're out there, once you've gone down that road, it's going to be very hard to work your way back. I mean, best of luck in saying, oh, you know what, I was kidding, just kidding. Stop running away, anybody that's under the age of 60. I'm your friend. And it's just, I mean, just when you think that they have reached absolute bottom, they find another level. And where's Bodger Johnson, by the way? He is not performing as promised. I mean, what about the Consumer Rights Act? Can we replace him with one of those robot vacuum cleaners and keep the difference? I mean, did anybody keep the packaging that he came in? I mean, if the tags are still on him and he's in reusable condition, we could get a refund. Mind you, they won't give us our money back if he's stained, so we're stuffed. Ain't that right, Bodge? Apparently he's been organising a party, which seems to be his thing. I mean, it's the only thing he seems to be able to do successfully, apart from persuade a surprisingly large number of the perpetually deluded to follow him like he's some sort of messiah. I mean, you could hear them harumphing away during that debate, sorely missing the dear leader because the gruesome twosome that they are left with are D-U-L-L. Boring! But they want the funny guy off the telly back. And they're frantically finding some way of blaming someone. Anyone else for all the things that his Imperial Bodgeness did to precipitate his own downfall. You know, it's Fish's fault. Or it's the mainstream media what done it. Or it's Ramona's for not believing in Brexit enough. Or it's Jeremy Bloomin' Corbyn. No! Anyone but the man himself. They treat him like a child. You know, all that, oh, leave him alone, he's doing his best rubbish. Like he's a 5-year-old who's been tasked with making a full English breakfast and the beans are on the floor and the eggs are in the teapot and the bacon's in the dog. He's not a child, that's just his act. That whole Just William untucked messed hair. Who, me? And they've elevated him to messiah status. It's like a third of the country's joined a cult. And it's not like as though they missed the results, you know, the successes, the plan, the progress, because there hasn't been any. Even now, they just trot out the same two things over and over. Well, he got Brexit done. No, he didn't. It's still not done and never will be. Which almost seems like it's the plan to constantly have the evil EU to blame for every cack-handed thing that they do. And of course, the vaccine rollout, which was successful because it was the only thing about this catastrophic handling of the pandemic that actually worked because he and his minions got out of the way and let the actual experts take over instead of trying to figure out how to monetize it for friends and donors. And still the crowd cheers for more. I mean, either they've lost touch with reality or I have. Let's put our ears to the head of one of his fans to see what we can hear. Yeah, just as I thought. And they're so deluded as to think that the country wants him back. No, we don't. They think that because the only people they talk to are exactly the same as they are. The chronic bores at the golf club, bellyaching about how things aren't what they used to be. And if that Maggie Thatcher were here, she'd sort out the militants and the wokists and the lefties. And the French. And they say, oh, thank goodness for Priti Patel, though, eh? And maybe when she's done, she'll send herself to Rwanda. I am joined now by National Chair of the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition and former Labour MP, Dave Nellis. Hello, Dave.
Hi, Nick.
So let's start with the last part. Has Sharma got his priorities straight?
Not really. If you can't protest at the sharpest fall in wages for decades, you're really saying that you're broadly going to accept the way things are, and that's not really on the side of working people. And we need an election, a change of government. We need not just to get rid of the Tories, we need to get rid of Tory policies, and Labour's not going away about it the right way to do that.
Well, they might not be going about it the right way to change it now, but they're not in power now. They've got to get into power. Isn't that what Keir Starmer's concentrating on?
Well, I don't think it's going to work. As I say, your gas and my gas bills could be £4,000 in a few months' time. There are more food banks in this country than McDonald's. We've got a country that's hurting from the cost of living crisis, and anybody who aspires to represent working people has to be fully on the side of the working people. And I don't think events of the last few days have demonstrated that Keir Starmer is.
Yeah, but his problem is that he doesn't want to frighten the horses. It's typical of the right-wing media and the government itself. They've already labelled these strikes Labour's strikes. He needs to distance himself from all of that in order to get the people who would ordinarily vote Labour, who last time voted Conservative, to either switch back or find an interest in the Labour Party rather than being repelled by these tales of lefty, activist, Marxist, socialist, and all the rest of that stuff that gets thrown at you. Isn't what he's doing the right thing? Because you've got to get your act in order to get into power in the first place, and only then can you change things.
Well, I think the demoting of an MP who said on a picket line that wage rises should keep up with inflation, the saying last week by the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves that Labour no longer stood for public ownership of essentials like water and gas and electric, whilst these firms are making billions of pounds of profit. I think ordinary working people want action on issues like that. And Labour at the moment is going about it to not inspire working people for a change of government, but to make more people think it doesn't matter which way you vote because they're all the same.
Well, as to the demoting of the MP, it wasn't because he was calling for wages to keep up with inflation. It was because he disobeyed a direct order not to go out and have unauthorised media round, which is precisely what he then did. It was almost as though he was trying to get fired.
Well, that's true, but what he actually said was what caused the problem. He said on those interviews that he thought workers deserved pay rises that kept up with inflation. And Labour immediately said, look, he's making up that policy because Keir Starmer's wiped the slate clean. Labour doesn't have that policy, and therefore he's out of line. But what does that mean? Does that mean Labour doesn't think wages should keep up with inflation? Because at the time when people are hurting, that's not the message that's going to get working class people voting Labour again.
OK, well, then more fool them. You know, when it comes down to what people are saying, and I hear it a lot, oh, well, you know, what's the point in voting because they're all the same? No, they're not. Choose one. You can have another 5 years of a Conservative government, which will be exactly the same as the last 5 years and the 5 years before that. Or you can choose a Labour Party, which is not perfect, but is that what we're actually waiting for? Perfection?
No, I'm waiting for a difference. At the moment, we've got three establishment parties who are broadly saying we're heading into the third crisis in the last 10 or 15 years. The first being the financial crisis of 2008, when we had to rescue the banks and we had to pay for it through austerity. The second being the COVID crisis. Now we've got the inflation and energy crisis. And on every occasion, the main three national establishment parties say working people have to pay through that through lower living standards. And I think you can inspire people with an alternative message, one that doesn't say working people have to pay. And I don't see that coming from Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. And increasingly in the trade union movement, people are starting to question the money and the affiliation that unions are giving to Labour. And I think part of that debate is going to result in people thinking there should be a new party in this country, one that is based on the organisations and the communities of the working class and has got a radical agenda.
You know, to me, this just seems like typical left wing. The Tory party are in public wrestling each other to the ground like it's a sideshow in the circus. It's like the clowns are on stage. The spotlight is fully on them, fighting with each other, tearing chunks out of each other, ripping up their own recent history, all of their own policies. They're telling us how dreadful they were. And what does the Labour Party do? They wrestle the spotlight from all that and point it at their own problems. I mean, it's just so typical.
Well, I'm almost glad you're calling me typical left-wing, because I've tried to be typical for the last 50 years and be consistent in the way in which I put forward socialist policy. But I agree. Whilst the Tories are tearing chumps out of each other, Labour should be demanding, for example, a general election so the people of the country can decide who the next government is.
But they're not going to give you that.
Tens of thousands.
Pointless. They're not going to give you that.
You know, as Bob Crow says, if you don't fight, you always lose. If you do fight, you don't know if you're going to win. But you've got a fair chance if you have a go. And workers at the moment are starting to win pay rises. We've just finished a 7-month dispute in Coventry, against a Labour council, by the way, for HGV drivers who've won a 12.9% pay rise. Other workers are winning around the country as well. That's inspiring working people. If Labour was on their side, they'd have a better chance of getting working people's support. But if they play the Tory game of concentrating on attacking workers, of not defending them whilst they're being attacked on their wages and so on, they don't deserve working people's votes.
But is he really attacking rather than not showing fulsome support for what the press would call militant, lefty, activist Marxists?
Well, by not saying much against those descriptions, he's letting that ride. When Heathrow and the RMT in June announced their strike dates, Labour's leader's spokesperson said those strikes should not go ahead. When the picket lines started, Keir Starmer said frontbench spokespersons should not go on those lines. When one shadow spokesman goes on a line and says wages should keep inflation, he sacks and demotes that worker. Labour's leadership have chosen their side. Now, they think that they can win election by just not being the Tories, and because ordinary working class voters have got nowhere else to go, they'll have to vote Labour, warts and all, if they don't want to see the Tories. I think there's a different conversation starting in the trade union movement. The Bakers Union disaffiliated from Labour last September. The firefighters and the train drivers discussed it this year in their conference. Sharon Graham has said this weekend in the papers, we're expecting in my union, Unite, she's my General Secretary, motions for disaffiliation from Labour to come up to our next conference next year. That's a sort of conversation and it's happening because of disillusionment and dismay of the direction that Keir Starmer is taking the Labour Party in.
Is there not something to be said, though, for the fact that Jeremy Corbyn, for all of his qualities, lost big time the last election, and he just really needs to dissociate himself from Jeremy Corbyn. It's almost as though he's not fighting the Tories, he's fighting Rupert Murdoch and Rothermere.
Let me disagree with you. Jeremy didn't lose the last election big time. That's one of the biggest fallacies going. Jeremy got more votes in Britain last time than Tony Blair in 2005, Gordon Brown in 2010, and Ed Miliband in 2015.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter, though. It doesn't matter, though.
The number of seats that Labour won was as a result of the division of the votes between Labour, Tory and Liberal Democrat, but the absolute number of votes that Jeremy won, it was 2.5 million down, by the way, on the votes that he got in 2017, when he inspired the biggest rise in Labour since Clem Attlee in 1945.
I agree with all that. But
radical ideas can inspire people, but then if you spend 2 years on a character assassination, 2 years on a character assassination from the press in general, it's not surprising that people question in 2019, is Jed the right people to lead the country? But it wasn't a worse result in terms of absolute votes, but it was in terms of seats.
Exactly. Precisely. And so I agree with everything that you just said, but the reality is he did not become Prime Minister. We got the Tories for another 5 years, and it seems to me that there is a certain timidity about him, understandably, because when the right-wing press decide that they want you gone, then they pretty much get their way every single time. And so he just doesn't want to walk through that minefield. Can you not just let the man win and then he can act in the interests of the working people, the ordinary working people in this country? But if you frighten them beforehand, the Labour Party are going to lose again, which seems to be their speciality.
When Keir Starmer stood for leader of the Labour Party just under 3 years ago, he won in April of last year, it was on a programme of the continuity of the radical ideas which Labour had developed in the previous 3 or 4 years. One by one, he's dropped every one of them. He's now said he's wiped the slate clean. Under him and under Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, there will be no public ownership of essentials. What is the point in putting just another person in power with a red Tory rosette on as opposed to a blue Tory rosette on? What working people need is wages that keep up with inflation, is a guarantee of decent services we can afford in terms of gas and electric and so on, is not a plethora of food banks around the country. We need radical action to solve the problems that face working people, and we're not getting that from the leader of the Labour Party.
Okay, I mean, I'll try one more time, but it seems to me that there is a masochistic streak down the side of the left in politics, that there's a sense to me that you actually like losing, to steeping in whining victimhood rather than doing what is necessary to win, which the Tories are really good at.
It's so often people accuse me of wanting to lose things. I've spent the last 50 years as a socialist, as a trade unionist, trying to win as many battles as possible. But I repeat the point, what is the point of just changing the rider on the horse if the horse is going in the wrong direction? We need more public ownership in this country, not less. We need less of a gap between the rich and the rest. We need living standards, higher pensions, higher benefits. We're not going to get those with the Tory ideas at the top of the Labour Party. So we need, if we can't rely on Labour being an alternative to the Tories, we actually need to build a new party. We probably need to coordinate the strike actions in this country over the next few weeks, like we did on pensions in 2011, when 29 unions called the same day of national generalised strike action on November the 30th, 2011. We need the same now before this next lot of gas and electric prices go up on the 1st of October. We need more radical socialist ideas. The establishment have got 3 parties. We need one of our own. And if we can't have one through the Labour Party, which I don't think we can, we need to build a new one.
OK, well, say you build a new one tomorrow. Do you think over what period of time could you actually arrange your affairs to become a party that actually has a chance of winning an election? Could you do it in 2 years? Because that's about what you've got. Could you do it in 7 or 17 or 20? How long?
I don't know the answer, but let me give you 2 possible answers. In the end of the 19th century, we were faced with this problem when there was the Tories and the Liberals, and trade unions said, in the last 20 years of the 19th century, we need a party of our own. They finally founded it in 1900. It was getting 1-2% in the first 2 or 3 years when it stood candidates. It took until 1924 before there was a minority Labour government. Now, I don't think the realignment in politics with the possible even split in the Tory party over the way they're taking chunks out of each other at the moment means that the change in politics is going to take that long. But it could be a lot quicker. I mean, I've organised hundreds of candidates standing in elections through the Trade Unions and Socialist Coalition in the last 10 years. We've averaged 5%. You start getting big unions involved with their hundreds of thousands of activists and their millions of members, and politics in this country could be changed a lot quicker. Jeremy's not going to be allowed to stand as a Labour MP in Islington at the next election. If he declared now as an independent and took the rest of the Socialist campaign group within Parliament alongside him, you could start to see a serious realignment in politics in this country. Not like the Change Party, which disappears after 5 minutes, but a new party based on a new constituency, the big constituency of the trade union movement. So that's not an easy answer, is it? I don't know if it's 1 or 2 years. I do tell you, if we have a general election and we replace one set of Tory policies with another set of people carrying out Tory policies, that's not going to solve the problems of working people. We need something new.
But in the short term, as far as the next election is concerned, what you just described is another Tory win.
Another win for Tory policies at the moment, because there's nothing that separates Labour. Labour is against the strikes, against its MPs appearing on strikes. It's spent £5 million in Coventry in the last 7 months employing strike breakers to try and break a strike by Unite the Union. That doesn't give you hope that if in national government, Labour is going to be any different. So unless we build something new, then yes, the next election is between different flavours of an overlapping Tory agenda.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. Dave Nellis, National Chair of the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition and a former Labour MP. Waltham Abbey. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Nick.
Eric.
Good evening. Hello, mate. Yeah, I'd just like to say I think people need to man up, really. I mean, I remember the summer of 1976, and I still went to school with my Parker on.
Your Parker.
And a flask of Bovril.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's wrong with people, you know?
A Parker, a dedicated follower of fashion, eh?
Yeah, he was one of the long ones with the furry bit around it.
Right.
And, yeah, I remember still doing that. I mean, that was the spirit that won us the Second World War. What's the matter with people? I mean, I blame Brexit, really.
Well, yeah, no doubt. I mean, that is a good point. All this air is, of course, coming over Europe. It's probably the EU being mean to us. Bristol. Hello, Max.
Hello, Nick. Good evening,
Max.
What I'm calling about is this the government's intention to reach carbon zero by 2050.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to turn this into an advert, but I've got a company that has, and I don't want to talk about it, but saves 50% of energy, saves a lot of water, and does a lot of things that could really contribute to achieving this objective. And yet,
what's the business?
That's an advert.
Well, no, you don't have to tell us the name of it. What kind of a business is it? What is it that you're talking about?
It's hot water systems. Hot water, because of the way that we've improved the insulation of buildings, hot water uses more energy than heating these days. And we've got a company that I don't want to talk about it, but we could save 50% of that.
Is it one of those ground source heat pumps?
No, this is not heat pumps. This is what really annoys me, Nick. Is because a lot of people talk about what is the sort of buzzwords at the moment. Heat pump. No, it's nothing to do with that. It is a real deal. And anyway, but what I'm trying to say, I don't want to advertise it. What I'm saying is, governments, and especially this one, under, as you know, they make a lot of noise and they talk a lot of rhetoric, which is absolutely fatuous because there's no substance to any of it. You know, this goes out into the media and people hear this and think they're doing a good job and making a fist of it. But in actual reality, nothing's happening.
Well, these promises to get to net zero by 2050, they don't actually mean very much, spoken by people who won't be in position in 2050.
Exactly, yeah. COP26 was supposed to be a sort of pivotal moment when they're going to really turn things into, but nothing happened. Nothing.
No, well, neither did I expect anything to happen. Give us an idea of what it, because people must be curious. What kind of technology is it you're talking about?
I'm talking. Well, I don't want to go into. Well,
you keep saying you don't want to go into it, but you started it.
Oh, okay, Nick, let's do that. My system is called water kinetics, and we've got a pipe within a pipe, and so therefore, do you know how penguins' feet don't stick to the ice?
I haven't investigated that personally, but yes, go on.
Yeah, well, penguins' feet. Penguins are hot-blooded creatures, and their feet do not stick to the ice. Now, if you and I were to take our shoes off and stand on ice, we would be in a real situation. But they have got a situation where their veins and their arteries combine, and one goes within the other, so that there's a heat exchange coming back from their feet. Now, my system, our company, Water Kinetics, does that and saves. And it has been proven by the BRE, which is the Building Research Establishment, to save 50% of energy. And we have spent a fortune on this, and we're still skint because nobody wants to know.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. Concert. Hello, Sean.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
I tell you what, I think Starmer's a liability, mate. We need to get rid of him straight away.
I've got mates up here in concert, right? We've got a Tory minister up here, right? They voted because of Brexit and all that, like, but they cannot stand Starmer because he's going the Tory way, mate.
Right. Well, would they prefer Liz Truss?
And Lisa Mandy. They're the only two that can save the Labour Party.
So,
they're honest to God, mate. I have arguments with them every Tuesday night on the darts night. Oh, Keir Starmer, he's a Tory man. He keeps voting for them, keeps abstaining. They're right. They're absolutely right.
Okay, but you have a choice. You've got the continuation of what we've just been having over the last 12 years with the Conservative Party, or the possibility of some change with the Labour Party. Select.
We need a change, Nick. We will not win an election under Keir Starmer.
Well, he's 10 points ahead. You would if it was held today.
Oh, the polls are crap, man, Nick.
That's a ridiculous thing to say. Of course they aren't.
They are, because you've got to wait for the general election. Polls are being wrong all the time.
Okay,
man.
well, a general election is a poll. Assuming that he would win tomorrow, who are you going to vote for? Conservative or Labour?
Labour. I would never vote for Conservative. I wouldn't stab Conservative Labour in the back.
Right, okay.
Like a lot of red ones have.
So there you go. That's your choice.
But I will not. I don't want Starmer because he'll not win an election, mate.
But you don't know that. It looks like he would win an election were it held today. I mean, let's assume that Liz Truss isn't going to be better than Boris Johnson. I mean, I would be prepared to put a small amount of money on the Conservatives not becoming more popular under a Liz Truss premiership. And so he would win the next election, as long as people like you, Sean, don't sit at home thinking, well, the Labour Party aren't absolutely perfect, so I'm not going to vote for them. And then you got another 5 years of Liz Truss. Let's talk about all of this with the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Chris Phillips joins me now. Chris was also a Detective Chief Inspector of the Metropolitan Police. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. Good evening.
What are your thoughts? Could Shamima Begum serve any purpose in preventing young people from becoming radicalised?
Well, I suppose you can always use people for that aim, but of course there are cost benefits, and I think the costs are hugely outweigh the benefits. The best way to persuade people not to go out there is to keep her out in Syria, where she should serve a sentence for committing the offences that she committed, rather than come back to the UK and be a burden on society.
But people might think that she was just a child when she went out there. Children do stupid things. Must she pay for it for the rest of her life?
Well, I think you do have to look back at the history, and really she only started showing remorse once she'd been arrested and was in prison and wanted to come home as she saw the UK. I think she certainly didn't show any remorse at the time, and all the offences that were committed in Syria and Iraq, and I think that's probably the best place to keep her. But I do think in the longer term, this comes around every few months, the fact that someone thinks that she should be returned, and I think at some stage she probably will be, but I think that the longer we can keep her out there, the better.
But, if she's out there, then she's out of sight, but also out of mind. Teenagers who are in danger of being radicalised, they aren't really going to think about her because she won't be in the news, she won't be here, she's not going to be introduced to them, she won't be in programmes of de-radicalisation, she won't be, touring schools or whatever it is that she might do when she comes in. They just won't know about her. So she really has the potential to help, but we seem to be throwing away that potential just because we're making an example of her, just because she's famous, I think it comes down to.
Well, it's no harm making an example of someone to say, listen, if you go out to Syria, you engage in murderous activities, then you're not going to be able to return back a few years later to life as normal. There were people literally going out on gap year jihads, and she was effectively one of them, but she showed no intention of wanting to come back until she got arrested and the murders had mostly ended. I think we have to bear in mind, listen, many offences, the worst possible offences you can imagine, were committed by certainly the people that she was working with and she was living with. And those offences were committed out there. If she comes back to the UK, she will not be prosecuted. The government will have to pick up, or we as taxpayers will have to pick up, the cost of her living over here. And I often ask the question, actually, would you be quite happy for her to move in next door to you and potentially her children go to school with your children? I think it's we do have to be realistic to say some people do need to pay the penalty for what they've done.
But what has she done? She hasn't killed anyone. She just went to another country to carry out some childish fantasy, which sort of blew up in her face, metaphorically speaking, when she got there. I mean, what other crime gets you excluded from the country for life?
Well, can you imagine the crimes that were committed over there? And we don't know exactly what she did or she didn't do. There's certainly tales of her sewing people into bomb vests, etc. So I think to say that she hasn't done anything wrong, the ISIS were literally throwing people off the top of buildings and massacring innocent people. This is not just a normal crime. This is in line with what the Nazis were getting up to during the Second World War.
Well, yeah, but again, it wasn't what she did. And you said that we don't know what she did, but that's an extraordinary thing to say for a detective chief inspector of the Metropolitan Police, to say, well, we don't know what they did, but we're going to punish them for life anyway.
No, but what she did was out in Iraq and Syria. You know, the trial that there's going to be, I should imagine at some stage in the future, should take place in the country where she committed the offences. And I think, I do think that she should remain there. I think she does act as a deterrent for people, and young people particularly, that think that they can go to these kind of locations and commit heinous crimes and return to their business as usual at some stage in the future.
Right, well, is there any indication that a lot of people are doing that?
Well, there certainly was, and that's the key point. And ISIS are far from finished. You know, in North Africa, ISIS are still quite a strong group. And at some stage in the future, this will all blow up again. I'm absolutely certain of that. And if you go to places like Libya and others in Northern Africa, then, you know, there are still these issues ongoing. And I think for us just to allow these people, when they go off to these heinous crimes, the worst possible crimes that man can commit, and actually not show any remorse up until the time that they decide that they want to come home. I think we've just got to take a stand, and I think this is what the government are trying to do, and I do applaud it.
You know, Russia has recently caught some British fighters that went there to help in, on the side of Ukraine. Might Russia look at this and think, well, looks pretty similar to me?
Well, I'm not sure that I can see any linkage with that at all. Russia are invading a country, and my understanding is mostly the people that have been actually arrested have got Ukrainian passports, and I don't know what we're trying to say here. I certainly think that that this was ISIS and extreme Islamic terrorists were far worse actually than what we're seeing at the moment. This was hideous brutality.
Yeah, but I mean, you could understand what Russia might say to that. They said, well, you know, we're on a mission to denazify Ukraine. British fighters have come to join on the behalf of these Nazis who were for Mother Russia trying to get rid of. And we've caught them. And look at what the Brits do to a girl in similar circumstances. So, I mean, we're sort of fighting their propaganda war for them.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, the men that were arrested, I think, in Ukraine actually had Ukrainian passports. I mean, and I do think that people that go to fight on behalf of Ukraine and have only got UK passports are not really expecting to come home if they get taken prisoner by the Russians. So I just don't think this is the same thing. This is an individual, a young lady, admittedly, who knowingly went out to join a murderous bunch of people committing terrible, terrible crimes. And then when she got arrested, she didn't show any remorse. There was no remorse whatsoever until she realised that she was going to be in prison for a very long time, and then decided that she wanted to return to her Western roots. Well, maybe it's not a good thing, and maybe if we can keep her out there as long as possible, then we should.
Right. So, okay. So if somebody had joined a gang, say in this country, and they went out and the gang stabbed somebody, as I'm sure happens on a regular basis, then just by dint of being in that gang, not actually holding a knife or egging anybody on, just from being there, they should be punished forever. For the rest.
No, I think you're underplaying what ISIS and the Islamic State were all about. They were murdering people, beheading people.
I'm aware of that, but she didn't. What I'm saying is she didn't.
Well, we don't know if she did or she didn't.
Well,
certainly
but there we are again.
She may have done.
Well, there we are again at the beginning. We don't know what she did, but we're going to punish her at the maximum level that we possibly can. It just seems a bizarre point of view.
Well, she's lost her British citizenship. That's the key point. The punishment will come from the courts in Syria and Iraq, where the incidents have taken place. And if it is true that she was sewing people into suicide vests, then obviously people may well have died as a result of that. So we're then talking about murder offences. I think we do have to. There are a lot of people in this country who are at risk of turning into extremists, and I think as a country we should be doing everything we can to persuade them that that's not a very good idea, and if they do choose to do that, then there are serious consequences, and I think the serious consequences for this young lady is that she's lost her British nationality.
And just on that final point then, do you think that we are doing everything that we can to prevent something like this happening again?
Well, I think we can always do more, and I think that there are so many avenues to this. The best thing that we can say is that at this moment we're not having a raft of terrorist attacks in the UK. I think there's so much that needs to be done. What we do know is that communities defeat terrorism. It's the police obviously do a massive job, but actually it's the communities that dissuade people from becoming terrorists, that identify those that are becoming extreme and then report them to the police or report them to social services. I think that can always be improved. That can always be worked on, and fingers crossed, we haven't had a terrorist attack for a little while, and hopefully that continues. So I think there's always money that can be spent. There's always work that can be done to make sure that people don't become radicalised. And of course, the social media companies and the internet companies have got a great part to play in that as well.
Lester. Hello, David.
There's three things I'd like to say. One I thought of when you had the last call on. The first one was that audience with the ministers and the candidates for Prime Minister, they weren't selling themselves to the audience because they need to sell themselves to the MPs. So that's probably why it was not very good. I didn't enjoy it at all.
Well, they were really selling themselves to the membership, who are going to be the deciders, because apparently we're not allowed to. Yeah, correct.
One of the.
Do you have a persistent cough?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling very well.
Oh, please tell me more about it.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Go ahead.
I think I've got the flu, actually.
The flu. Oh.
Well, I did a coronavirus test and nothing came up, so I was happy about that.
So you failed that test?
Yeah, I failed that test.
Right.
So, what I was going to say, I can't remember which candidate it was, but for the cost of living crisis, they said that they would halve the VAT on fuel, on gas, on diesel and petrol.
So if she fuels at £2, which it tends to be around Leicester, it comes down to 183. So that's a nice. I wouldn't say bonus, but it's a nice thing for him to do if he gets in.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it doesn't really make much of a difference, but I suppose it's better than nothing.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, does it? And I go to college in Leicester. I'm not going to say the college. There's a few in Leicester. And I was off ill quite a bit last term, so they let me come in and complete some studies so I could get through to the next year. They're very, very helpful. I went into the gents, and now they've got a sanitary towel bin there. So the men that are on periods, they can put the sanitary towels in.
Well, that's just a good idea. Harrow, Dave.
Hi, Nick.
Dave.
I just, women you had on a couple of calls ago, I mean, I just think, are these people in the real world? I mean, have they heard of a thing called capacity planning? I mean, I really think that, as much as, there's a difference between what, the ideal in principle and in practice, and I just think that, I mean...
What's capacity planning?
Well, capacity planning is, making sure there's enough resources for all the people to go around. Right. I mean, do these people know that, it's okay, you can have 100 million people here and there's still going to be enough water coming out of the taps? I mean, these are serious questions. It's like having a lifeboat that's already brimmed to the full to the brim, and still letting on more people. Do you know that lifeboat's going to be able to take them without capsizing? I mean, these people don't know. I mean, well, maybe they do. Everything's fine, and we could just carry on taking thousands and tens and thousands of more people, and it's not going to put in jeopardy, the basic needs and resources of people who are already here, because otherwise it's not doing anybody any favours.
Dave, people have been saying we're full for about 100 years. The moment they see or hear a foreign face or voice, up comes the call, we're full. They've been saying that forever. And as for the resources of this country, well, it also works the other way. I mean, say that the rains failed in this country. I mean, the climate change is causing exactly that problem in all over the world. Say for one reason or another, this country became uninhabitable and we had to flee. And if that was the opinion of every country on earth, those fleeing a place that is now uninhabitable for one reason or another, where would we go? We would rely on the kindness of strangers. Well, you've got to give to get, I think. And the idea that we're full is just, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Just take a train ride out from any major urban centre and tell me as you stare at fields with nothing in them that we're still full. Concert, County Durham. Hello, Sean.
Hello, mate. Keir Starmer's got to go, mate. I'm Labour through and through, mate. And I'll tell you what it is. If it wasn't for the union money to go into the Labour Party will be finished. I think Keir Starmer's well out of order, and I think he should leave the Labour Party as soon as possible, because he may as well be a Tory, mate.
Well,
he may as well be a Tory.
But I just don't buy that argument that they're all the same. That's the kind of argument that makes people stay at home and not go out and vote on the day, Sean.
Nick, at the end of the day, mate, right, we're all for strikes, right? If you don't get a decent pay, the Labour Party's always been like, come on, union, we're with the union. Keir Starmer may as well be a Tory, mate. Get rid of him now as soon as possible.
All right. Message understood. Thanks, Sean. The latest voting intention is for the hopeless Keir Starmer. He would win. 39% Labour, 32% Conservative. Now, that is some turnaround. But winning is I don't know, what is it with the Labour Party? They just don't seem to like the idea of winning. They always, not always, usually find a way to fashion a loss. There was one chap who was the most successful Labour PM probably in history, and the Labour Party can't stand him, which is just so typical of them. Richmond. Hello, Steve.
Oh, hi, Nick. Good evening. I was just saying to your producer there, I think she... the problem with Shamima was that original interview. And I presume you saw the original interview.
Well, remind us what it is that you have in mind.
Well, that journalist found her, if you recall. He found her in some camp somewhere and conducted an interview with her. So she was, she had no solicitor with her or anyone assisting her. And I think we got the unvarnished truth at the time.
Which was what for people who haven't seen it?
She was fully committed to the cause.
But at the age of how old?
Oh, this is in the camp when after whatever 19 or 20. After the after the Iraq conflict and everything else, and she was found in the camp.
Right.
And if you it's on the internet. Just watch that interview, and you'll realise that at that time, I think most people got the impression that she thought she could return to the UK almost as a heroine. That she'd done something really special.
Right.
And,
well, what you're saying then does imply that she's somewhat deluded. I mean, to put it.
I'm saying that. And I'm sure people would say she was shell shocked, and it was all. She didn't really know what she was saying at the time. But
should that then exclude her from the country forever?
I don't know. I'm afraid. I just feel that we can't. If she's had a change of heart, it's because she's had time to understand, that things weren't going to be that easy for her. Because I think at the time she thought she could just rock up back in the UK and there'd be no problem at all.
But that argument, if you sort of extend it logically, it would suggest that the point of prison is to just lock people away forever, regardless of whatever.
I'm just saying that I'm afraid it colours it for me. I really don't know whether it's in the thinking of the government or anything, but there's no doubt. Watch that original interview.
Right.
And it was shocking at the time when you heard it. She was absolutely reconciled to the cause, and
so she should live with how she was then and the consequences of expressing those opinions then. She should live with that forever. It seems an extreme point of view, but thanks for that, Steve. I'm sure that's not an opinion that only you hold. Liverpool, hello, Joey.
Hi, mate. You're okay? Good evening.
Good, thanks.
Good morning.
Yes.
Yes. Regarding this heat wave that's coming in, as you presenter said there before, stay in.
I am the
don't
presenter.
Go out, don't get sunburn. Plenty of water. Make sure your head's covered so you don't get sunstroke, because that's terrible, that. But people must know this thing anyway, mustn't they?
That makes perfect sense to me. Thanks a lot, Joey. I thought I'd dip out of that really quick because, I've got warning bells ringing in my mind.
Warning!
Use the force. Okay, here's my second favourite political interview ever. Now, to be clear, my favourite political interview ever, and I wonder if this is still available on the Global Player, it was our own James O'Brien who was interviewing Nigel Farage.
I'm a nutcase.
And James O'Brien, in his way, and I don't know how he does it, but he seems to have some sort of weird brain that can absorb all of this information. It's like a computer, and he just stores it all in there to whip it out at the appropriate time. And I urge you to watch it. It's brilliant. He takes Nigel Farage and dismantles him to his constituent molecules and leaves him a pulsating heap on the carpet. And as Nigel Farage is getting angrier and angrier, because all of his usual catchphrases and all this stuff that he comes out with weren't working, and James O'Brien could unpick absolutely everything he said and disprove in real time, like fact-check him in real time. It's remarkable how he did it. I don't know how he did it. He does this stuff without notes. And Nigel Farage, I bet Nigel Farage still wakes up screaming in the morning. Just, he'll have nightmares of it still. So that was my favourite political interview of all time. My second favourite happened yesterday. And it was Ben Kentish who was interviewing David Davis. Did you hear it? Now, this was just before the debate. And David Davis was in the room. And they were obviously warming up the crowd coming in by playing some music. And here's how it went.
Can I ask you how you think the Sunak campaign is going? He was behind at the start. He now seems to be even further behind. Your team, his campaign, they're struggling to turn this around. Why is that?
Well, we're still 6 weeks out yet, and it depends who you're talking to. If you talk to the ordinary members of the public, the majority of them think that Rishi will make a better Prime Minister. I think he'll make a fantastic Prime Minister, a really good one. And it's up to us to get that across. It's what we don't want to see is this turning into a sort of bidding contest, who can offer the lowest taxes and so on, but that's the result. What we want to do is to have a contest of virtue. I think when it comes down to that, Rishi will win. It'll just be
That should be a new format. Just ask them a question and then turn up the music.
Rock and roll!
I'd pay good money to hear that. My second favourite political interview ever. And absolutely my favourite quote from David Davis. Couldn't hear a blind word he said. Perfect.